In this project, we will be creating a platform-style game. This type of game will take our skills to the next level by dealing with more advanced topics such as gravity and animations. By the end of this project, you will have a fully playable platform game level. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, so in this section, we're going to set up everything we need for our platformer game. We're going to start off by creating a new project for it. Then we're going to go ahead and navigate to where we can download our free assets for the game. Then, last but not least, we're going to import those assets into our game art folder. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, let's go ahead and create our new project. We're going to go to the top left up here. We're going to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call this platform game. I'm going to keep it in the current directory I have it. I'm going to go ahead, leave everything else the same, and hit create and edit. Let's let that load. Might take a second or two to turn on. Awesome. Here we go. All right, next thing we're going to do is just navigate to the 2D view right over here. Perfect. Now for this game, we can keep the screen the same size. I think this will work pretty well for what we're going to make. The next thing we need to do is create the art folder. So on the left over here, we're going to right click, create new folder, and then just call this art, enter, and there we go. So far, so good. All right, next thing we're going to do is download the assets we're going to be using for this game. And the link is up here on the left. It's going to be kenny.nl/assets/pixel-platformer. I'm going to add this link into the description as well. So go ahead, download this. It's going to ask you if you want to donate or not. That's completely up to you. Once that's downloaded though, we're going to go ahead, open up our file explorer. We're going to go ahead and find that kenny_pixel-platformer.zip. Now we need to extract it. So let's right click on it, go to extract all, hit extract, give it a second or two to load. It's asking me to replace my current files because I already have this downloaded. That's fine. I'm going to select that, let that load, and there we go. Awesome. Let's go up one file with this button here and simply drag and drop the not zip one right onto our art folder. Let that load. Now let's move it over into the actual art folder. Might need to minimize this. Let that load. And there we go. We should be able to see now all of our art inside this folder if we open it up. And there we go. Perfect. Awesome. So far, so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to start creating the main scene. We're going to start off by creating the main scene with a node 2D. Then we're going to add a background with a sprite 2D. And last but not least, we're going to add multiple background layers to best fit the game. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and create a 2D scene right up here on the left. Let's create that. Let's go ahead and we can rename this to main. Let's rename that to main just like that. Awesome. All right, so now we are in 2D view. Let's save that so it renames it. We're going to save that TSCN as main. Awesome. All right, next thing we're going to do is create the background for our screen. So we're going to go ahead, right click on main, go to add child node, and we're going to do a sprite 2D. Now we're going to call this background. Awesome. And next up, we are going to add another sprite 2D inside of this one. And we don't necessarily need to name this one as long as the top one is named. Now the way we're going to do this is we're just going to do it with a bunch of different sprites and make a background manually. Now there's other tools in Godot that we can use such as tile sets and tile maps, but because this is a beginner tutorial, we're going to do it this way, which I think is a little bit more simpler and beginner friendly. All right, but let's get started. So this sprite 2D here, we have to give it an actual image. Let's scroll down. It should be in tiles. Let's go ahead and pick out a sky tile, which should be in here somewhere. If not, it might be in a different one. Looks like it's not in this one. Let's go back up. Maybe it is in, oh, backgrounds. There we go. That makes more sense. All right, so let's go ahead and give it a top background. One of these has like a little cloud in it, which I want for the middle part. So let's go ahead and try to find out which one's which. I'm going to use this one first. And this is a plain white one. I don't really want a white one. Let's see what this one looks like. just a different shade of white. Let's zoom in so we can see it a little better. Let's see what this one is. Nope, same. Let's scroll down a little bit. I think this is the one I was thinking of, which is that cloud one. Yep, awesome. So what we want to do is we want to have the upper half be this lighter color here, and then the lower half be the darker color, and have this white cloud run in the middle. All right. So we're going to go ahead, make sure we have that one there. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. Control D. Let's go ahead and just move this one up, and we'll rename these in a second. Let's duplicate it again and move this one below. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and select the top one, which is up here. Make sure we're selecting the right one. Let's go ahead and just call this top. Let's go ahead and give this one a color now. Let's see if this one looks good. Yep, that matches that, perfect. Now we need to do one for the bottom one. So let's make sure we're selecting the right one, which is this one. Let's call this lower. Awesome. Let's scroll down and we'll use one of the lower tiles. Let's see if this one looks good. Yep, awesome. So now you can tell that this light blue is going to match this top part here, and that dark blue is going to match that color there, okay? And then we're going to have a nice little cloud in the middle. All right, let's go ahead now and create this. So I like the size, but I think we can make it a little bigger. So let's start off with one thing. So if you want to change multiple things at the same time, there's a cool trick you can do in Godot is just hold down the control key while you're selecting one, and then select the one there and the one there. And now when you change something here in the inspector, it'll change every single one. So we don't have to individually change each size. We can just change them all at the same time. So let's go ahead to the transform. We're going to find that scale, and let's see what 2 looks like for each of them. That looks pretty good. I think we could actually use 2. I like it. All right, we'll keep it at 2 for now. So now that we got the size correctly, we need to put these in the right areas. So let's go ahead and do the middle one first, and we will rename that middle also. Let's do middle, just like that. Let's take the middle one, and I want to put the middle one not necessarily in the middle of the screen, but just a little bit above. So maybe something like here would be good, and it's okay if it sticks out for now. That's fine. What we're going to do next is we're going to control D on it. We're going to take that middle one, and we're going to go ahead and put it inside of this. So now we can move them all together using that one. But this one here, though, we are going to want to move over. So I'm holding down the control key still, and I'm going to move it. It helps it move a little better, and we'll connect it. Now this doesn't need to be perfect. I just want to make it so you don't notice that it's separating. So we don't want it like that, because now we can see that they're separated. We want them connected. All right. And sometimes when you're doing this, when you're selecting the item, it'll have this orange bar around it. But what I like to do is actually select somewhere else just to make sure that there is no line. Okay, awesome. So now that we got that there, let's select that one again. Go to the move tool, control D, keep holding down that control key and move it over. And there we go. I'm going to do another one, control D, still holding that in the control key. Make sure it's not covering it. There we go. Control D, and there. Awesome. Now that we have a couple, we can go ahead and select all of these and just control D till we can go a little faster. So I'm going to select this one here, control select, control click, and now I can control D, and I'm still holding down the control key. I'm going to move them over just so we're about there. Awesome. Control D again, moving over, make sure they're connected. There we go. Control D, keep holding control down, still moving over, control D, make sure they're connected, control D, and there we go. Awesome. Now it's okay if it sticks out a little bit because we're only going to see exactly what's in the screen. All right, awesome. But our middle bar looks pretty good. I like it. Awesome. I'm going to close that one up. Let's do the next ones now. Let's do the top one. So I'm going to go ahead, use the move tool. Let's go ahead and hold down the control key and just move it down until we get somewhere. Make sure it's on the correct position though. I'm going to select somewhere else with the other pointer tool. Now that one looks pretty good to me. Let's select it again. Let's move it up just a little bit because I think we are on top of it. Nope, that looks good to me. Awesome. All right, now that we have that one there, let's go ahead, control D. Let's put this top 2 inside of the top one there. Keep holding control down and move it over just so it is connected. Make sure it is with the pointer tool now. There we go. Awesome. Let's do it again. Make sure you're selecting the top two. Make sure you're using the move tool. Control D, still hold control. Move it over. There we go. One more, Control D. Make sure it's the same, Control D. And there we go, awesome. Now what we can do is hold down now instead of just controlling and clicking all of them like one by one, another way we can do it too is if you select the top one here and hold down the Shift key now, and then select the one down there, it'll highlight all of them in between those two. So unlike the Control key where you can select one and then you have to tap each one, if you select the top one here, hold down the Shift key and then select the one there, it'll highlight all of them in between, including the one you selected. Awesome. So now we're going to go ahead and Control D to duplicate them, just like that. Perfect. I'm going to zoom out with the wheel a little bit. There we go. And I'm still holding Control down. I'm going to move these over just so we get to the same spot. Perfect. Control D again. Same spot, Control D. Same spot, Control D. Awesome. I'm going to move the screen a little bit using the wheel key. Control D. And there we go. Awesome. All right, perfect. Now what we can do is simply Control D and go upwards this time. But I want to move that guy out of there. So let's go ahead and select him. And I'm going to do the move tool and holding down Control, I'm going to move him lower. There we go, just for now. We'll figure that out later. So now what we want to do is select the top one here. Actually, you know what? That's fine. We'll add that next. So we're going to select the top two, hold down Shift, and then select the bottom one. Now hold down Control and hit D, and there you go. So now let's go up. And make sure we are zooming in, and it is a little overlapping, just like that. Awesome. Let's go ahead and scroll up a little bit. Control D, move them up again. There we go, Control D. Move them up, Control D. Awesome. Select the mouse key, and if you zoom in, there shouldn't be any lines. Awesome. All right, we can add these ones real quick as well. Simply select it, and you can actually use that Control key on these as well if you're using the pointer tool. So I'm holding down Control, selecting that one. Or it might not let us do that actually. That's okay. We can just do one by one. Control D, switch over here. Oops, make sure we're on the right one. I'm gonna move that over. Doesn't like how it is. I'm gonna Control Z and just redo that real quick. Oops, too much. Control Y to go forward. All right, let's select this one here. Select the move tool, Control D. Just move it with the red arrow. There we go. Control D again. Let's go down this time. Control D. Go down. Control D. And I think that should be it. Awesome. All right, and that looks good to me. There's no lines. Perfect. All right, so now we got the top half done. Let's do the bottom half. All right, so we have this guy here. Let's just make sure it is in the right position. I think it is. It might be a little bit too high, so we can move that down. There we go. Let's select somewhere else to make sure there's no line in between. Yep, no line. Awesome. All right, zoom out a little bit. Let's select this lower one. Well, first I'm actually going to close this one because there's quite a few. So I'm going to go ahead and close that drop down. Awesome. Now we have the lower one. Let's go ahead, select it, Control D. Let's move it over. And you know what, a faster way we could do actually is keep it on top, because then we won't have to manually do these. We're going to go ahead and duplicate it again. Move it over. Make sure it's in the right spot. Perfect. Let's take both of these now and just put it inside of here. Awesome. Let's do the pointer tool, make sure there's nothing there. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and do these all the way across. Let's go ahead, select both these guys. Use the move tool, Control D, move them over. Perfect, Control D. Awesome, and let's do it all over again. Starting from the top, hold down Shift, select that lowest one. Let's Control D and slide them over. Control D, slide them over. Control D, slide them over. Awesome. And just to keep it the same, I'm going to reselect this one right here. Go to Move Tool, Control D, and slide it over just so it matches. Awesome. Let's select somewhere else, make sure there's no lines, and looks good to me. Awesome. All right, now we have to, of course, make this go all the way down. Let's do that. So let's select the top one here and hold down the Shift key and select the bottom one there. And there we go, we have them all, perfect. Let's go ahead to the Move tool, hold down Control now, Control D, perfect. Control D, and then let's just keep doing this until we get to the bottom below that little blue line. More and perfect. Awesome. All right, there we go. Let's save that, Control S. Let's go ahead, scroll back up to the top here and close that and close the background. Perfect. All right, I like it. Don't forget to save. So far, so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to go ahead and get started creating the platforms. We're going to start off creating platforms with a static body 2D. Then we're going to go ahead and add platforms for the player to walk on. Last but not least, we're going to add an invisible platform for the out of bounds area. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started creating these platforms. So the first one we're going to create is going to be the long platform that the player spawns on. To do that, we're going to go ahead, right click on main, go to add child node, type in ST, so static body 2D appears. Make sure we selected that, and let's bring that in. Awesome. So a static body 2D is a great thing to use when you're creating platforms for your player, because it's going to give us that body controller where we can then go ahead and add sprites into it and then collisions. All right. It gives us this little warning here because it's looking for that collision type. So let's go ahead and add a collision. Right click, add child node. We're going to do a collision shape 2D. Create that. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Now this one we're going to be making is going to be for the long platform. So let's double click on the name. Let's rename that. We're going to call this long platform. Awesome. All right. Perfect. Next thing we need to do is add some art to it. So to do that, we're going to add some sprite 2Ds. Let's right click, add child node, sprite 2D. Awesome. Now we don't need to name these ones. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop the sprite 2D I want to use. In our art folder, I'm going to go into the backgrounds. And then we should have this little tile set here. It's going to be tile0000.png. Let's bring that in, drag and drop it on our sprite 2D. Perfect. Now if we want it to match the rest of the scale throughout the game, we're going to have to make it 2, because if you remember, that's what we did for the background objects. All right. So let's select that sprite 2D again. Let's go to the transform. Let's go ahead, make that scale a 2, hit enter, and perfect. Now if you wanted to, we could even make this a little bigger, because I think since our screen's pretty big, we want it to match it up with that. And I'm okay if the background doesn't match exactly. So let's do a 3 instead and see how that looks. And there we go. I like it. Awesome. Now one other thing to make it a little bit more clear is if we go to the texture and see this filter, we can give it a better filter to match the pixel sizes. So let's go ahead and change that from inherit to nearest, which will set it to the nearest clarity of it. Okay. Awesome. And as you can tell, it's a lot clearer now. Perfect. Let's go ahead and move this somewhere in the middle of the screen. Actually, if you remember, we should not move things like that, because remember, we want to move the entire thing, because now what happens is if I move the long platform, it's going to go ahead and move it like that, and that's not good. So let's Control Z to bring that back. Perfect. Let's move it from the long platform. I'm going to go ahead, bring it over here, and bring it down. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and continue making this. Now this one here looks like it has the black line all the way around it, and I don't really like that because we want to make this a little bit longer. So let's find the one with the corner, and I think it's actually the one right below it. So let's drag and drop it onto there, and perfect. Awesome. All right, let's do the next ones. Let's Control D, and I'm simply going to move it over just so it's a little bit connected like that. Perfect. Let's do the middle one, which should be the one right below that one. And there we go. Awesome. Then let's add a couple of these. Let's Control D, add a couple more. Just make sure it's connected. Perfect. Control D again. We're going to go ahead, put that somewhere like there. It doesn't need to be perfect, just as long as it's pretty close. Looks like I moved mine up a little bit. Make sure it's on the same. Go back a little bit. There we go. Control D. And one more. It's not bad. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and just copy about 3 of these real quick. Control D those 3, and then just move them over just so they're connected. Just like that. Awesome. Perfect. Now we want to change is the last one here, just so it matches with the black corner like that. Perfect. Let's add that. I think that should be the 0003 one. Let's go ahead, drag and drop that in, and there we go. Awesome. So here's our first long platform. Now the next thing we need to do is add that collision shape, because currently it's missing that. That's why we're getting this little notification here. So let's select it. Let's go ahead and give it a shape. I'm going to select the rectangle one. Let's go ahead and do that there, and then let's simply stretch it out to what we want. Make sure you're using the pointer tool. I'm going to go ahead and just add it on the corner and add it on the lower corner and simply move it across. All right. Awesome, just like that. Perfect. Perfect. So this is our long platform. All right. So now that we added a collision shape and we have a static body 2D, now when we create a player in the next coming up sections, it will fall down and not just instantly go through this. All right. Awesome. So let's go ahead and close that up. I'm going to select this one here and use the move tool. I'm going to go ahead and move this back a little bit over here. Just like that. Perfect. Now we need to make the short platform. So let's select it again. Let's Control D to duplicate it. And I'm simply just going to move this entire one somewhere like right here, maybe a little bit more over. Awesome. I'm going to just make this whole thing a little shorter. And we can do that a pretty simple way. I'm just going to remove a couple of the middle ones here by holding down Control and click. And I think that's a good amount. I'm going to delete those. It's going to ask me if I want to delete 4 nodes. I can hit OK. Perfect. Let's move this guy back a little bit over here. Zoom in a little bit. Keep moving it just so it looks connected. Awesome. Of course, we need to readjust this here. Now, like we had the issue with the text, we're actually using the same shape we did. So if I make this one lower, it's going to go ahead and make the other one lower as well. As you can see, that little blue mark. Yep. So what we want to do is we need to create a new one. So I'm going to Control Z so it goes back to the original. We need to go ahead, right click, clear, click it again, new rectangle, and there we go. So now we just need to realign it. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to put it somewhere like over there. Perfect. And somewhere over there. Awesome. All right. So far, so good. Let's rename it. Instead of long platform, I'm going to call it short platform. All right. Awesome. Perfect. All right. I'm going to close that up. And there we go. So far, so good. So now we have a long platform for the player and also a short platform. All right. Awesome. And you could make more of these if you want. If you want to extend the level, you could totally do that. But for testing purposes, I'm just going to keep it at 2 for now. All right. Awesome. All right. Next thing we got to do, of course, is make that out of bounds area. So let's go ahead and create that. And instead of using a static body 2D, we're going to make it an area 2D. So let's go ahead and right click, add child node, area 2D. All right. Awesome. Let's go ahead and give this a sprite. Actually, you know what? We don't even need a sprite for this because the out of bounds area should be invisible anyway. All right. So instead, we're just going to add that collision shape 2D. Just like that. Awesome. I'm going to move the whole thing down a little bit. Just somewhere right about here. So when our player doesn't land on one of these platforms, he will fall down and the game will end. All right. So let's go ahead and readjust the size of this collision shape. Let's add another rectangle. Let's do new rectangle shape. Awesome. And simply use the pointer tool. And what we're going to do is we are going to just stretch this guy out pretty far, just in case the player jumps too far. We want to make sure he always lands on this. So if you make your game a little bit longer than these 2 platforms, then what you want to do, of course, is stretch this out to the end of your game. All right, because our player is going to be able to jump. So he'll be going from here to a jump, maybe even a double jump. All right, so make sure he cannot, pass this or the game is never going to end. He's just going to keep falling. All right, awesome. So let's go ahead, stretch it out a little bit more, just enough to be safe. Awesome. Let's go ahead and rename this. I'm going to call this out of bounds. Awesome. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And there we go. All right, let's save. So far, so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to get started creating the player object. We're going to start off by creating the player with a character body 2D. After that, we're going to add an area 2D for the hurt box and another area 2D for the jump box. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started. So to start off creating the player, we're going to create a new scene. So on the top left, on scene, we're going to add new scene. We're going to add other node, and we're going to type in character body 2D or just CHA, and it should pop up just like this. It's going to have that little character moving symbol right there. So let's select that. Awesome. All right. Next thing we're going to do is rename this. I'm going to call this capital P player. So a character body is kind of what it sounds like. It's all it is just a body for the character. It comes with a lot of functions that help us use a character specifically for a 2D game. It helps us make a character for games like the one we're making, for platforms, and even top-down ones, all right? It's going to help us detect ground. It's going to help us detect collision, moving platforms, all that stuff, all right? Awesome. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the actual collision for the player. So let's go ahead, right-click, add child node. Let's add a collision shape 2D, just like we've done in the past. Awesome. Then, of course, we need the image for the player. So let's right-click, add child node. Let's type in sprite 2D. Double click it. There we go. Awesome. So let's go ahead and add the sprite 2D before we set the collision shape. So let's go ahead and find our player, which is going to be in the characters folder. So let's open that up. I'm going to be using this little green guy here. So let's go ahead, drag and drop him into our sprite 2D. Awesome. And if you remember, all of our other sprites in the game for the platforms are all a 3x3 size. So let's go ahead, select our sprite 2D, go to the transform. Let's set the scale to 3 here and also 3 there. Awesome. There we go. Now to make the actual sprite a little clearer, if you remember, we got to go to texture, open that up, change that filter from inherit to nearest. All right. Awesome. And there you go. Perfect. Now that we have our actual player, we can go ahead and set its collision. Let's go ahead and do that. Select collision shape 2D. Let's go ahead and do that rectangle one, which is right here. Awesome. Let's expand that to where we want it. Let's do something like there and something like there. Awesome. All right. Perfect. So far, so good. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add some other collisions for it, because we need one for when he steps on an enemy. So we'll put it towards his feet, and then another one is when the area that he can get hurt, okay? So let's go ahead and add those 2 areas. We're going to right click on player, add child node, and we're going to do an area 2D. And let's call this we can call this jump box for the jump one. Jump box. Awesome. All right, for the jump box, let's go ahead and give it a collision area or collision shape 2D. Let's find that. There we go. Let's add that there. Awesome. Let's go ahead and add a shape for that. Let's do again another rectangle. Awesome. Now this area specifically, I'm going to want it on its feet, so I'm going to put it down there, and let's do just about there. You can adjust this however you want, but I think this one will be pretty good to be about there. Maybe I'll even go a little bit farther just so we can test it out. All right. Awesome. Let me stretch that a little bit more. Perfect. All right, now we need the actual like hurt box area. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to right click on player, add child node, area 2D. There we go. We're going to call this hurt. I'm going to do hurt box. Enter on that. Awesome. Let's go ahead and give it a shape now. Right click, add child node, collision shape 2D. Perfect. Let's add a shape for it on the top right of the inspector. Add new rectangle. Lower this down. Make sure it's not covering the jump area box. I'm just going to stretch this out to everywhere else on the player. So let me do there. Let's go ahead and bring this up to about there. Awesome. Looks like we expanded the original one a little bit too far on the right, so let's change that. Actually, you know what? I think it's going to change as he looks left and right. So we'll just keep it for now. All right. Awesome. So make sure you have the jump box, the hurt box, and then just the regular collision shape. Okay. Awesome. All right. Go ahead and save that. Control S. It's going to ask you where you want to save it. I'm going to save it here. And there we go. So far, so good. All right. So in this section, we're going to create some animations for the player. We're going to start off by adding an animation player to the player scene. Then we're going to go ahead and create an animation for walk, jump, and game over. On top of that, we're going to create one more animation for when the player is getting hurt. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do is create a new animation player on the player scene. So let's go ahead and right click, add child node. Let's do an animation player, it should look just like this. All right, not the tree one, make sure it's this one here. So go ahead, select that, hit create, perfect. Now we can leave the name the same for this one. So the animation player allows us to create animations for our sprite. You're gonna see it in action in just a second. So I'm gonna go ahead, move this up a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead though and create our first animation. So let's go ahead and click on animation. Then all we have to do is select new, all right? Let's give this an animation name. I'm gonna call this walk. Awesome. So now we have this animation here. Now there's a couple things to notice. The first thing to notice is that our little blue line here is representing where we are in the current animation, all right? The current animation is only going to 1 second, all right? You can change that by switching this number over here. So like if we wanted our animation to change to 2 seconds, we could do it there. Now I think for this one though, we're gonna keep it at 1 second for now, but we might change it later. On top of that, there's another cool little button over here where you can set the animation to looping or not looping, all right? There's also animation looping of going back and forth as well, if you wanted to go side to side. But for us, we do want this walking animation to be a looping one, so make sure it is selected and the color is blue like that, okay? Awesome. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and add the actual animations to the player. So to do that, we're simply gonna add this other one here where its legs are being separated, kind of like he's doing a walking motion, all right? So once selected on animation player, and we're currently in this scene here on the walk one, what we want to do then is select what we want to animate. So we want to select the sprite 2D for the player. And now we're going to have a bunch of little things over here. If you notice these little keys. Now these keys can basically enter a state of that sprite into our animation, all right? So we currently want this one first where he's not walking. Or actually, you know what? We actually want the walking motion first because when he's moving to the side, we want him to stretch his legs out like he's gonna take a step, all right? So we're not gonna click this button yet with this current one. We wanna click it once it has the next one. Now we can do that simply by dragging and dropping this one into here. And there we go, awesome. So then we can go ahead and select this key value. It's gonna ask you if you wanna create one. Go ahead, hit create, and there we go, awesome. So our current scene is, or our current animation is him stretching his legs out like he's walking, all right? Now we want it to, of course, go back to the original one. So let's go ahead and move our blue line over here. And simply all we're gonna do is take our current one here, switch it there, and then click the key value again, and there you go, there's another dot, all right? So now if we go ahead and move this back to 0 and select the play button, we're gonna see our animation go, all right? Now it's a little slow, but we can make it smaller if we want to, but there you go, there's your first little animation, all right? Awesome. Now let's go ahead and make it a little bit more fluent. Let's go ahead and move this value here to, let's see if we go to 0.25, and if you want to get to that exact area, simply go over here and type in 25, enter, there we go. And then we can grab that little dot there and put it over there, awesome. Now, of course, we don't want the animation to stay at 1 second anymore. We want to switch that to 0.5. So let's go over here and switch that 1 to a 0.5. Hit enter, and there we go. Let's hit play now and see how that looks. Awesome, I like it. See, looks a little bit more realistic. Perfect. You can adjust that to whichever one you want. That's completely up to you, but I think I like this for now. Awesome. Let's pause that. Let's go back, or we don't have to go back. We can just move it back to 0 just like that. All right. Now, one thing to notice is it might have switched the resting state. So if you select the walk, you're gonna get this other one here, and this is gonna be the resting state, which is kind of gonna be like our idle. So when we're not playing any other animation, it's gonna be playing this one. Now, of course, we don't want his legs to be out like this. When he's resting, we want him to be straight. So we're gonna go ahead, select the sprite 2D, and then drag and drop our starting one into here. Go ahead, hit the key value, and there we go. So now our resting one, if you hit play, it's gonna just be this one, all right? Awesome, perfect. Now what we want to do is create the jumping one. Now let me double check what I did for jumping because I like the one I did a lot. Let's go here. Now for the jumping one, I'm going to play there for that. I think we started off with a legs out, so let's do that. So let's go ahead and create a new one. So what we can do, go to animation. Let's do, actually, you know, a faster way to do this also, instead of creating a whole new one, simply select the one we have already created, such as walk. Let's go to animation. Let's go ahead and do a duplicate one, all right? Which will go ahead and just copy what we have currently here. So in case you make an animation that's pretty similar to one you already made, you can simply duplicate it like this. Let's go ahead and change this to jump. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Now for the jump one, we are going to make his legs out like this, but then we're going to make them go back to center, just like that. So I think we can actually just keep this. Now the one thing we do want to change though is the looping, because when we jump, we don't want to be looking like we're walking in the air. So we actually just want to keep this the same, okay? So what we could do is just turn off looping, all right? So we can go switch it around until we get to those looping symbols, but without the color blue, all right? Awesome. So make sure you have that there. Perfect. All right, so now we have two animations. Well, three technically. We have the rest one, we have the jump one, and we have the walk one. Now we need one for the game over, all right? So let's go ahead and make that one. This one we're going to give it a little bit more of an effect. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is we can simply create a new one for this one because it's not going to be like the two others. So we're going to go to animation, we're going to go to new, we're going to call this death, hit OK. Awesome. All right, so what I want for this animation is I want one where he basically goes like a jump up, spins around, and then falls out of the screen, okay? So let's go ahead and make that real quick. So to do that, the first thing we're going to need is, of course, the position. So to get the position of him, we're simply going to go select the Sprite 2D. We're going to open up the transform, which is right over here. It's already open. Awesome. And we're going to save the current size and look of it. I don't exactly want the one that has open legs, so we might add that one as well, just to get rid of that one. So I might drag and drop this over here. I'm going to key value it, create. All right, so we're going to keep this one here. We are, though, going to go ahead and keep the positions of it. So the position of X and Y, you can save those with just these here. So let's save those. Awesome. Now we're going to go ahead and move him up after 0.5 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and move the Y value, well, down technically, and move him up to a little bit. Doesn't have to be too high. I just want it to be significant where it looks interesting. So let's go ahead and do it to there. Awesome. So he's going to jump up, and then we're going to save that. So now we have the values of the Y position there. Perfect. So he goes up. Then we're going to go ahead and move him down a lot. So let's go ahead and go to the 1. And instead of negative, we're going to change this to positive. And I'm simply going to go ahead and make this something like, let's see what 200 looks like. We want it to be far enough where he's still not going to be visible in the screen. So we might even need to go farther than that. I'm going to go do something like a 600 actually. Just like that. Go ahead, key value that. Perfect. So it's going to start off here. Well, it should start off at the, oh, we didn't save the beginning position, I guess. Interesting. So, no. Yeah. So it's instantly starting to there. We don't really want that. So let's go ahead and zero this out to there. Save that there. Perfect. Then it's going to go up. Awesome. And then it's going to go down. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is add some rotation. So right here, let's save the rotation, which is going to be right over here. We're going to save that, create one. Awesome. So we're starting there. And then what we want to do is we want to kind of spin the player. So let's take this value and just move it over. Key value it. Awesome. So now if we go ahead and hit play, it's going to go ahead. It might be a little fast, so we might slow it down. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off here, and then as you can tell, he's kind of spinning and falling. Okay. Awesome. Now it is a little fast, so we can go ahead and spread this value out. So we can make this one a little longer. We could do something like a 3-second one, and then simply move these two ones to 3. Let's do that. Move that one over there, and move that one over there. Awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and hit play again. Maybe that's a little too slow, but at least now we can see how it works. I like it. All right. Let's move that maybe down to 2 seconds. Let's try 2 seconds this time. Yep. Change that to 2. And let's go ahead, replay it. Well, not play it backwards, but there we go. It goes up and falls. Now I still think it's not fast enough, so let's go ahead and make it a little faster. I'm going to actually move these two to a lower one. Let's try it here. So he goes up. I don't think he's spinning fast enough. But let's go ahead and move that down a little bit. Let's see how this one looks, where he goes up and he falls. Yep, he's fallen down. Awesome. I like that. What are we at right now? 2.5? Pretty much 2.5. Or 1.5. Or 1.25, I think is the right one. There we go. Let's move these guys on that. Awesome. Start at the beginning, he goes up and he falls. All right, awesome. I might actually move him up a little higher. I don't think it's high enough. So let's go ahead and select the position here. And we can actually edit it from here now because we already saved it, which is a nice little tool. So go ahead, select that, and then let's go ahead and just go up a little bit higher. Might be a little slow. Or you know what, it's because we saved it, so now we are gonna have to select it from here. We are gonna have to go ahead, move this up a little bit more. Go ahead, save that value again. Awesome. Hit play, and there we go. I like that one a lot better. Awesome. All right, so now we have the death animation. Perfect. All right, now remember what we did. We did not keep that as a looping because we don't want this animation to keep playing over and over again when the game is over. We just want it to play one time. All right, awesome. So keep it there. Perfect. Now, next thing we need to do is add an animation for when the player gets hurt. All right. Now that's going to be pretty easy. It's going to be pretty similar to what we did. We're not going to be creating it though in this animation player because we don't want our player to only have an animation when he's hurt. We want him to keep doing other animations like walking or jumping when he's hurt. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click. We're going to add child node, and we're going to go ahead and create another animation player. Go ahead, select that. We're going to rename this animation player capital H hurt. Awesome, just like that, perfect. Next thing we're going to do is actually use something in our Sprite 2D. Now to make a nice red flashing effect, we're going to use a rect color. So let's go, or a color rect. We're going to right click on Sprite 2D here because that's our actual sprite. We're going to add a child node and use a rect color, or color rect, keep getting those two confused. Color rect, there we go. Select that, go ahead, hit create, and there we go. So this color rect is basically just a plane that we can use on top of sprites to change their color or change it a little bit, making it a little bit more of whatever type of color we want. Now let's go ahead and move this on top of the player. It doesn't need to be perfect. You're going to see why in just a second. I'm going to keep this the same for now. We're going to change the color in the animation. But what we need to do, of course, is make sure this matches the sprite. Now, how can we do that? Now, there's a simple way, actually. If you select Sprite 2D over here, and then go ahead to the visibility area, and you're going to see this one setting, which is clip children, all right? And since this color rect is a child of the sprite 2, we can simply set this from disabled to clip and draw, and there you go, awesome. See how that now outlines our player? So even if our player is doing other animations, such as the walking animation or the jumping animation, it's going to just be exactly like it. And this is perfect for a hurt animation because we don't really want to change the entire animation whenever the player is hurt. We just want to show that the player is hurt, such as a flashing effect. All right, awesome. Now let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is select our animation player, and we're going to go to animation. We're going to do new. Now this one I'm just going to call it hurting. All right, so for hurting, we want to do a couple things. One is we want to make sure that this color rect is turned on visibly. All right, so let's select the color rect. We're going to go to visibility, and we are going to go ahead and give it a key value of the visible on. So make sure it's selected on. Go ahead, key value it, hit enter, and there we go. Next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and flash it red. I kind of like the white, completely white here, but I might want it to have a little visibility with the red. So we're going to go to the red over here. We're going to select the self-modulate one, and what I'm going to do is simply get a red value like that and then make it a little less visible, just enough so we can see the player. So at 200 is pretty good. I'm going to select somewhere else so that goes away. We're going to go ahead, key value that, hit create. Now what we need to do also is make sure it goes back because currently it's going to stay at that. So let's go ahead, select here, select our color again. Let's go ahead and just make it completely white again, and push this value up here as well, and key value that there. Let's go ahead and get it back to the first value right here. Select it again, Let's go ahead, make it visible all the way and white all the way. Awesome. Key value. There we go. So now when our player is hurt, it's going to go ahead and do this flashing effect. Now I think this is a little slow, so we could go ahead and make this a little less. So I'm going to take my red value here and move it down. Let's do, what are we at right now? Where is that at? I think that's about there. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and make that about there, which is 0.7. So let's go ahead and set this whole thing to 0.7. Just like that. Awesome. So go ahead, we have it hitting play, and there's our little flashing effect. Let's make this one a looping though. Let's hit play again, and there we go. Awesome, I like it. Perfect. And you can make this faster if you want. You can make it slower. You don't even have to make it red if you don't want. That's completely up to you. All right, awesome. I'm gonna pause this now, set it to beginning. Now what we need to do though is go ahead now to the resting. So this resting one does not get created until we already have one in here. So let's select resting. And we need to do one thing is, of course, make that not visible anymore. And because it's already here, we can go ahead and just select that from over here. So now if we hit play, it shouldn't be visible. You might need to do it in the actual one here as well. So let me click that back up over here. Let's go to color rect. Let's go to visible, and I'm simply going to turn that off and then key value it. All right, awesome. So now when you hit play here, it shouldn't be red at all. Awesome. All right, so far so good there. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead, reselect play. All right, so just to recap, we have our hurting animation where our player flashes red, just like that. We also have the resting one where it's not going to be doing it at all, just like that. We have our animation player where we have a couple different animations. We have our resting one, which should not be like that. Let's fix that real quick. I think that's because we added that at the beginning. So let's go ahead and make sure at our resting position, our sprite 2D is zeroed out for its position. Zeroed out there. Go ahead, key value that so it stays. Hit play to test it. All right, so we have our resting one here. Awesome. Let's do our death animation one where we have that jump and flip. Awesome, I like it. We also have our regular jump one, which is going to be like that. Looks like our player does not like to come back up when we do our jump one. Now to fix that, of course, we have to set this 0 as well. So let's go ahead. Let's zero out the player. We're going to zero out here. Enter that, key value. All right, so when we hit play here, our player should stay, but he is going to jump and it's going to stay the same, just like that. Awesome. Let's do our walking one. And there we go. We make sure to have the looping on so we have that nice walking looping effect. All right. And let's double check to make sure the player's position doesn't get changed. Awesome. So it stays down there. Perfect. If we do the jumping one, still doesn't like how we are up there. Let's make sure, for some reason it keeps switching that. Make sure we have that there. And then key value it. There we go. Now it's asking. I guess it's because we didn't have that before. But this should be good now. All right, let's try it one more time. Start with the death one. There we go, it falls down. We do the jumping one, player comes back, awesome. We do the walking one. Here's where the problem might be. So we are not bringing our player back to 0, 0 for walking, so let's do that as well. Let's go ahead and make sure we key value the walking position of the sprite, and there we go. Awesome. All right, perfect. All right, I know that was a lot. Make sure you got that down. It's really important to get your animations set correctly because they can cause a lot of issues, such as like when we had that issue with the death and the jump, how the position was all messed up. So make sure you zero out things that you're using when you start it, such as the position. All right? All right. So far, so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to get started creating the player script. We're going to start off by creating a new script and attaching it to the player node. Then we're going to go ahead and add a couple functions in here, such as ones to make the player move, jump, and animate. We're also going to be adding some of the player's state abilities, such as game win, lose, and a heart health updater. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. All right, let's get started creating the player script. So inside the player scene, we're going to select the main player node, the player controller, right over here. We're going to go ahead and add a new script to there. We can keep it as player.gd. Go ahead and create that. Awesome. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of everything we have in here. So let's go ahead, get rid of all these except for the top extends character body 2D. All right, so this script is going to be pretty big. So we're going to start off with all the variables. All right, so at the top, we're going to go ahead and add a couple things. First thing we're going to add is an @export. This one's going to be a variable for the speed And at first, we're going to equal that to a 300. We can adjust it later. We're going to add another at export, another variable. We're going to go ahead and call this gravity. And we're going to go ahead and equal gravity to 30 for now. And we might change it later also. We're going to add another at export. This one is going to be another variable. This one's going to be for jump underscore force. And we're going to go ahead for now and just equal that to 30 also. All right, awesome. All right, next up, we're going to add a couple onReadies. Let's go ahead and add an onReady. This one's going to be for the variable of sprites. So like our character sprites. We're going to go ahead, actually I might just call it sprite because we only have one. We're going to equal that to our sprite 2D, which is going to be right over here. I'm going to drag and drop that in. Perfect. Awesome. All right, next up, we're going to do another onReady, another variable. We're going to go ahead and call this hurtbox, capital B. And we're going to go ahead and equal that to our hurtbox area 2D, which is right here. Awesome. And if you guessed it, we're going to do another one now for the jump box. Let's go ahead and do another at onReady variable. We're going to do jump box equals, and of course, drag and drop our jump box right there. Awesome. All right, perfect. Next up, we're going to go ahead and add a couple other onReadies. These are going to be for some of the animations and timers and stuff. Let's go ahead and add another onReady. We're going to go ahead and add an onReady variable. We're going to go ahead and call this anim. We're going to equal this to our main animation for the player. So just the animation player, drag and drop. Perfect. We're going to add another one at onReady variable. We're going to go ahead and call this one the hurt anim. We're going to equal that, if you guessed it, to our hurt or animation player hurt, just like that. Awesome. All right. Next up, we're going to go ahead and do our hurt timer, and we didn't add this yet into the player, but we can do that real quick also. It's super easy. onReady variable, and we're going to just call this the hurt timer, which is just going to be our timer for our hurting. So we're going to equal that, and before we add it in, we can create it real quick. We're going to right click on the player controller, add child node, add the timer. Awesome. And I think we're going to change the wait time to 2 seconds. We can adjust it later. Let me double check and make sure I didn't need to add any other settings on here. Doesn't look like it, so we can leave those both off. Awesome. All right. Now what we're going to do is, of course, drag and drop our timer into there. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Now we need another one for our future camera that we're going to make. We haven't made the camera yet, but we're going to make that in a couple next sections. Let's do another at onReady variable. And we're going to go ahead and call this cam equal. Now we don't really have it right now, so we can't just drag and drop it in here, but we can type out where I know it's going to be in the future, which is just going to be $, and give it some double quotes. Inside those double quotes, we're just going to do a ... slash, because it's going to be in the main section of the main scene. So right under the main node, and I'm going to call it a camera 2D. All right, awesome. And we might change that later, but for now, this is going to be a nice little placeholder. Awesome. All right, now we're going to add some more variables. There's going to be quite a few in here, but we're almost done. Now we're going to add the hearts, and again, we don't have these created yet, but we need something that placeholds them for the code to work. So we need to at onReady variable, and this is going to be the heart 1. And we're going to make that equal to exactly where I know it's going to be equal to. And it's actually going to be inside the camera, so we can simply drag the camera right here, paste that in. But we're going to add a couple things to the end of it because it's going to be inside of it. So we're going to add a slash, and then we're going to go ahead and do full heart 1. All right. And if you guessed it, we're going to do this basically the same thing for each of the rest of them. So we can simply paste it in, enter, paste it in. And all we have to do right here is just change the heart to 2, and then of course the file path to 2, and also the heart to 3 down here, and the heart 1 here to 3 as well. All right, awesome. All right, make sure you have those there. I'm going to add a couple enters. All right, awesome. So now we have our hearts. Now we need to go ahead and add some variables for the win labels and game over labels. Now usually we would of course do this in a whole nother script, but just to keep things a little simple, I'm going to put it all inside the player's script. All right, this is kind of what a beginner would do, so that's what I want you to understand. All right, now we're going to do another onReady variable, and we're going to do game over label equals, and again, this is going to be inside of the camera 2D one, so we can copy that. Let's paste that right there. Perfect. And then, of course, we need to tell it where it is, and I'm simply going to go do a slash, and we're going to eventually call it the game over label. Awesome. Now we need one for the win and the coin, so we can simply copy this and just paste in two of them below it. And we can go ahead and do the game win one first. So we could do win label for this one. And I think what we're going to call the win label, it's just going to be win label. So let's do a capital W, win label, just like that. Perfect. Now we're going to do the coin one, and simply I'm going to change this just to coin text. So lowercase coin, capital T text, awesome. And inside of it, we're just going to call it label coin. So I'm going to take away all of that and simply go ahead and add coin. Just like that. Awesome. All right, perfect. So now that we have those there, now we need a couple more variables for just some of the function pieces we're going to be using. So again, let's continue that. I'm going to go ahead now, and we're going to add a simple variable. This one's going to be random strength. And we're going to go ahead, give it a colon. It's going to be a type of float, which again is just a decimal number. And we're going to do a 30.0 for that. Now this random strength is going to be for our screen shaking ability you're going to see once we get to it. So we're going to need that. Then we're going to do one for a shake fade. Let's do a variable, and we're going to call this shake fade colon. And we're going to go ahead and do a float. And we're going to make this one here equal to 5.0. We can change these values later, but for now I think it looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add some more variables. We're going to go ahead now and do one for the coin count. So we need to give it a variable, coin count. And we're going to go ahead and do a colon. We'll do this in type of int, which is not a decimal place number. Equal it to 0 at first, because of course when we start the game for the first time, we want that coin count to be equal to 0. Awesome. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do another one for the shake strength. So variable shake underscore strength, and we're going to go ahead, make that equal to a float. And this one at first we're going to do 0.0 because we're going to change that later on when we do initiate the strength. Let's do another variable. Now this one here is going to be the random number for the shake, because of course when we have a shaking effect for our game, especially when the player gets hurt, we don't want it to be the exact same shaking every single time. So we're going to give it a random ability for it, like a random shaking number. So we're going to do equal, and we're going to use something in Godot, which is really nice for generating random numbers, which is called random number generator, which is super nice, helps us generate random numbers. We're going to go ahead and do a .new because it's going to be a new number, just like that. Awesome. All right, perfect. And we forgot to put the equal sign there. Make sure you do that, or you're going to get that red line. Awesome. All right, make sure you got those down. Let's go ahead now, keep going. And we have a couple more for some of the game state. So we're going to do a variable for game over type of bool, which means, of course, if it's either a true or false. So at first, we're going to have our game over set to false, of course, when the game first starts. Then we're going to go ahead and have another variable for times jumped, because we're going to give a double jump effect to our player. And you know what? We actually don't need to give that a type. We can just give it a 0, which is going to assume it's going to be a type of int. Then we're going to do a variable. And this one, again, is going to be a bool, but it's going to be called hurting. And it's going to be bool type. And we're going to equal that to false, so we can tell whether the player is going to be hurting or not, because we're going to, again, have that red flashing, so we need a bool for that. Awesome. Then we're going to go ahead and do another variable. This one's going to be for player health. And we're going to go ahead, make it a type int, and we're going to equal that to 3. So we start off with 3 points of health. Awesome. Then we're going to go ahead and do another variable, and we're going to go ahead and do times shook. This is going to be an int and equal to 0. We're just going to be using this value to tell how many times we're shook, because what happens is we can get stuck in a loop if we don't limit it. All right, awesome. All right, and now we just need one more, which is going to be the bool for game win. So we're going to go ahead, variable, game, capital W, win, and we're going to give it a type bool, and we're going to equal that to false at first because we don't have that set when the game first starts. Awesome. All right, I know that was a lot of variables, so make sure you got them down. Make sure you have all the game state ones down, so all of these right here. Awesome, make sure you got those. Make sure you got all the on-readies. I know we had quite a few. I know we don't have these other ones created yet, but we will have them eventually, and we're going to make sure to name them the same thing, or we're going to get an error, so make sure you got those all down. Awesome. And then last but not least, make sure you have the couple extends we have, and of course the type one as well. Awesome. All right, perfect. So far, so good. All right, now that we got all the variables set, let's go ahead and do the next one, which is going to be a process function. So let's go ahead and create that right underneath our variables down here. We're going to go ahead, type in func. Let's go ahead now and do the underscore process delta. All right, now we're going to be doing a couple things in this process. This one is going to be specifically for the coin count and also turning on and off the heart objects. So let's go ahead, select that. Now we're going to first show the coin text. That's pretty simple. All we have to do, well, first I'm going to give it a comment so we know what we're doing here. Show coin text. Now to show the coin text, all we need to do is equal that coin label to our current coin count. So to do that, we're simply going to do coin text dot text. And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to equal that. We're going to equal it to a str because we have to turn our value into a string. And that string value is going to be the coin count. All right, awesome. So this process function is just going to run this over and over again throughout our game. And we always want to make sure our coin text is up to date. Okay, perfect. Make sure you have that there. Awesome. All right, now let's go ahead and do the next one. We're going to be adding ones for the hearts. So we're going to add a couple if statements for this, starting off with the first one. And you know what? Let's put a comment so we know what this is doing. I'm going to call this heart state code. I'm going to add a couple enters so we can see a little better. All right, now we can go ahead, start it, which is going to be an if statement. We're going to do if player health is equal to 3, which should be the max amount of hearts we currently have. We're going to do heart1 dot visible, and we're going to go ahead and equal that to true. Okay, and we're going to do that with the same 1, 2, and 3 ones, because of course when we have full health, we're going to make sure we have all of our hearts visible. All right, let's go ahead and do the 2-1 for that one and the 3-1 for this one. All right, awesome. Now we can simply just do another if statement. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this right here. Change this to a 2. And the current one we want to set false is going to be that heart 1. So let's go ahead, just change that to false. Awesome. Let's go ahead and do if our health is equal to 1 now. So copy that whole if statement. Let's paste it there. Change this to a 1. And simply set heart 2 to false. Awesome. All right, now we're going to do 1 for 0. So let's go ahead, copy that again. Let's go ahead, paste that in there. Change our current number to 0. And all of our hearts should equal false. Perfect. Now, we also want to do one more thing. We want to go ahead and do an OR symbol. We're going to do OR time shook equals 1. Now we're adding this here because you'll see as we get the player shake capability that we want to make sure that the game doesn't keep updating the hearts over and over again when our shook value equals 1. So basically what happens is when we hit game over, we're going to shake this to 1. So we also want to make all the hearts go back to 0, even if we have more hearts, because if we're in the out of bounds area, then we're going to set our player health to 0. But you'll see that in just a bit, but just make sure you have that there. Awesome. All right, now let's go ahead and add the actual shaking functions. These are pretty simple, so we can just do them real quick. We're going to start off with a function. We're going to call this apply underscore shake. We're going to go ahead, we're going to give it colon, parentheses. Then this is going to be the movement, or actually this is just going to be our apply shake, so we'll do that for the next one. So for this one, we're just going to go ahead and do our shake strength. And we're going to go ahead and just equal this to our random strength that we're going to calculate in the next function. So let's go ahead. Let's do another function. Now this one this time is going to be the random offset. And I'm going to set it up like that. Give it some parentheses, semicolon, open it up. All right. Now in here, we're going to add a couple things. And all we want to do is basically get our random offset value. So to do that, we're going to start off with a return, which all that does is just return us a value. And we're going to do a vector 2. And a vector 2 is just a x and a y value. So our x is going to be on the left and our y is going to be on the right. So we can calculate that with that RNG, which is going to be our random range number, dot randf range, which is right there, perfect. And to get this, we're simply going to do a negative shake strength, comma, shake strength, but this time that one's positive. All right, so we're going to get a number in between the positive and negative of it. Perfect. Then we're going to go ahead, do a comma, and do the same thing, RNG, dot range f underscore range. Perfect. Inside of there, we're going to add the same thing. So we can simply just copy what we have in here. Copy that, paste that in. Perfect. Awesome. All right, make sure you have that in there. That's going to help us get our random offset. And then this is going to be the actual applying shake. All right, perfect. So make sure you have those two functions. Make sure you have it all the way to the end over there. It should have two parentheses at the end because we're closing out that vector 2. Awesome. Make sure you have all of these for the hearts. This is all going to be in our process function. So make sure you have all that down, and also the coin text one as well. All right, perfect. You can save that. So far, so good. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the next function we're going to be creating is one for the physics. So we're going to be creating a physics process function, which is where we're going to put most of our movement for our player and calculating its gravity and velocity. So let's go ahead and add that. It's going to be down here. We're going to do a function underscore physics process delta, because this one's going to be a little bit different than the main one because we're going to have all of our physics in it instead of just setting things to on and off. So let's go ahead, open that up. All right, so the first thing we're going to start off with is telling whether our player is on the ground or not. And if it is, we want to set our jump back to 0 because we're going to allow our player to do multiple jumps in the air. So to do that, we're going to do a simple if statement and use something that Godot gives us, which is underscore on floor. So if player is on floor, then what we want to do is reset our jumps. So times jumped, reset it to 0. Okay, just like that. Awesome. Let's give it a comment. So we can call this just reset jumps. Awesome. All right, perfect. Turn off that little debugger there. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to tell whether or not the player is not on the ground, and we can do that simply by doing if exclamation point is on the floor, which means is not on floor. So if the player is not on the floor, then we're simply going to set our velocity dot y to our gravity. Or we'll do plus equals because we're going to be adding it over time, gravity. Now one thing we do need to add is we need to limit our gravity from not just infinitely going up, And we can simply add that by doing another if statement. So if velocity dot y is greater than, let's say 1,000, then we're going to go ahead and set our velocity dot y to 1,000. All right, awesome. And we're doing this because we don't want our game to glitch out if our number just keeps going up and up. It's nice to limit these things. I don't think our player will ever get nearly to this number, but if it does, we definitely have this little safe if statement to save it. All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and add a comment here. Let's say limit gravity. Perfect. I'm going to add another enter there to keep things separated. Awesome. All right, so far so good. Let's keep going. So now we're going to add we're going to add the actual jump ability of the player. That's pretty easy also. It's another if statement. So we could do if input, capital I, dot is action just pressed. And we're going to create that jump input right over here. But before we do that, let's go to the project settings, input map. Make sure you're selecting this one here. Let's call this lowercase jump. Let's add that in. Go to the plus button, hit the space key, and there we go. Awesome. Perfect. Let's close that. Let's go ahead now in here, double quotes, and there's our jump. Perfect. All right, so if the space key is clicked, then we're going to go ahead and do an and times jumped is less than 2, because we don't want to have our player jump infinitely. We want to limit how many times he can jump, which is going to be a max of 2. We're also going to add an and to double check that the game is over. So and game over is equal to false, and game win is equal to false as well, because we don't want to be able to have our player keep jumping if the game is also done. All right, awesome. So now how do we actually make the player jump? It's pretty easy. We can simply set our velocity dot y to our negative of the jump force that we set. All right, we're doing negative because if you remember in Godot, when you move something up, it's going to be a negative value. So we could just pass in a negative value for the jump force, but that's kind of hard to remember. So I like to just set it to a negative value here. Okay, awesome. We're also going to go ahead and add a times jumped to a minus, or actually no, a plus equal 1. So every time we jump, we're going to have a plus of 1, because remember, we're trying to limit the amount of times a player can jump. All right, awesome. All right, that's good for there. Let's add a comment to this. Let's just call this player jump button. I'm going to add an enter there. Keep things spaced out. Perfect. All right, next up is we need to create a variable to represent which key is pressed when we're moving left and right. So let's create a variable for that. So we're going to call this var. We'll call this horizontal underscore movement. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to equal that to input dot get axis, because we're going to be clicking 2 buttons here. And we haven't created these yet, so we can go ahead and create these just like the jump button. Go to the project settings, input map. Now we're going to add one for move underscore left. Let's add that in. Let's add the actual button for it, which is going to be A, the A key. Hit OK. There we go. Perfect. Let's add the next one. Let's call this move underscore right. Add this over here, and then D. Hit OK. And there we go. Awesome. So there's our space, A and D. I like it. All right, make sure now we go ahead, reselect it. We're going to add move left first, and then we're going to do a comma, and then a move right next. Now what this get axis is doing is it's going to make the first value equal a 1, and the second one equal a -1. Okay, so if our player is moving backwards, it's going to be 1, and it's moving forward, it's going to be 1 or -1. All right, awesome. So make sure we have that there. Perfect. Let's go ahead now. Actually, we can go ahead and comment this. So we could do we could just call this player input direction. Awesome. All right. Next up, we're going to create a couple if statements for the player animation. So we're going to start off with an if game over. So if the game over is equal to false and game win is equal to false, we're going to go ahead and we're going to if velocity dot x equals 0. So if neither one of those buttons is pressed, or player is not on the floor, so is with that is on floor, but that exclamation point makes it not, is not on the floor, then what we're going to do is set the anim dot play to our rest position, which is kind of like our idle position of the player. Perfect. Then we're going to do an else. So if any of those conditions are not met, we're going to do an else. And we're going to set our animation of the player to walk now, which is the walk one here. Perfect. All right, awesome. Next up though, we're going to set the way the player is facing now. So if velocity dot x is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and set our sprite dot flip h equal to true. And what this is doing, if you go to our sprite 2D right here and then go to 2D view, you can see in the offset up here that it has flip h, so we can go ahead and turn this on and off to make our player move either left or right. Okay, so you can see if he is on, then it's moving right. If it's off, then it's moving left. Okay, awesome. All right, let's go ahead back to script. Let's do the other one now. So we're going to do an elif. So elif, and we're going to do velocity dot x is less than 0. Then we're going to go ahead and do our sprite dot flip h equals false. Okay, because we don't want him to face that way anymore. Awesome. All right, perfect. Now one more thing we need, well, two more. This is going to be outside of all these elifs and ifs. It's going to be at the end, but make sure it's on the same level. This one here, we're going to set our velocity dot x to our speed times horizontal movement. Awesome, which makes our actual movement of our person move the way we want it. So if it's that negative or positive times our speed, it's going to make us move in that direction. Okay, awesome. All right, now one more thing we need to do, this is something in Godot that is really helpful, is if we use the move and slide function. This just allows our player to move very smoothly. Okay, so make sure you have this set as well, including the one above it. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and give this a comment. We can just call this game, well actually technically it's player anim state, just like that. Awesome. All right, now we're also going to need one for the jump, so we can just create that simply right over here. We're going to do an if statement, if velocity dot y is less than 0, then we want to go ahead and play our jump animation, which is simply anim dot play jump. Okay, just like that. Awesome. Let's give it a comment. Let's just call this jump anim. I'm going to add an enter down here. Perfect. All right, next up is our health state code. So let's go ahead and do another if statement. So if player health is less than or equal to 0, so if we're all out of health or less than the amount of 0, then what we want to do is of course set our game over to false, or no, to true, because the game's over now. So set game over to true. And then below that, we're also going to do our game over label. We're just going to make sure we set that to true. So game over label dot visible. We're going to want to make sure to set that to true. Okay, awesome. All right, and we can give that a comment for what it is. We can just call this player health state, just like that. Awesome. All right. All right, almost there. Now we need to add the actual randomization of the screen shake. This is just going to help make our game look a little better. Let's go ahead and do an if statement. If shake strength is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and do our shake strength and equal that to lerp f, which just helps get a calculation for our shake strength, comma, 0, comma, shake fade times delta. Okay, awesome. So this is helping us get a new shake strength value that we're going to use. So we're going to do cam dot offset equal random offset. Okay, awesome. So this is helping us create a new randomized strength for our shake strength, which is great. So we can go ahead and give that a comment. Just going to call this shake strength value. All right, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the actual ability to restart the game, which is super easy. We're just going to reuse that space key. So once our game is in the either game over phase or the game win, then all I want to do is let the player have the ability to restart the game with the space bar. So that's pretty easy since we already have an input for that. So we can simply do if capital I input dot is action just pressed, and we'll use the same one, which is jump. We will do an and. Now if we want to add two things in one, we can simply give them a parenthesis, and one we're going to do the game over. So if the game over equals true, or the game win equals true. Awesome. Don't forget colon. All right, perfect. So now that we know the state and the ability to do it, we're going to simply do the get tree dot reload current scene. Okay, so again, we're going to go ahead, hit the space key, and make sure that the game is either in game over or it's in game win. And if it is, then we can go ahead and restart the game. Okay, awesome. Let's give this a comment. Let's just say restart game. Awesome. All right, almost there. Now we need some more game state functions. Let's go ahead and add these. We're going to do an if statement. We're going to do game over equals true. So if game over equals true, and another if statement for the times, time shook equals 0. So if time shook equals 0, then we're simply going to apply shake, so that screen shake effect. And also another thing, which is times shook equals 1. Now why are we doing this? Well, we're adding the simple if statement in here to only shake the game once, because if we didn't have this and we still applied the shake, then every time in the game over screen, it's just going to keep looping through and keep shaking the screen. But we only want it to shake one time when the game's over. So that's why we need to kind of reset the value of time shook to 1. So it won't do it over and over again. All right, awesome. All right, next up, let's go ahead and play some animations. We're going to do the hurt anim, of course. Dot play hurting, because of course in game's over we want to play that, so we know that we were affected. Then we're also going to do the game over label. We're going to make sure that's visible still, so visible to equal that to true. Awesome. We're also going to go ahead and do that anim.play for the death animation we created earlier. Awesome. We're also going to go ahead and do an await this time. An await anim dot animation finished. It should pop up here. There it is, animation finished. And then we're going to add one more thing down here. This is going to be the position dot y plus equals 500. Now, the reason we're doing this await and this position dot y plus 500 is because at the end of this animation, we might have a chance that we're going to see the character. So I'm going to wait till that animation is done playing and then move the character down by 500 positions, all right, 500 pixels down, because I just want to double check that I'm not going to view the character even though we're in the game over scene or the game win scene, okay? Awesome. Well, actually, the game win scene is not going to move the character, just the game over one is, because we're going to do that jump up spinning animation and fall out of the screen, okay? So this is just a little reassurance thing, just in case. All right, awesome. So make sure you have that down there. Let's give this a little comment. Just call this game over state. Perfect. All right, next up, let's go ahead and do a state for the hurting. So we're going to do if hurting where is it? There it is. If hurting equals false and game over equals false, or game win equals true, then we're going to go ahead and do the hurt anim.play reset, which is going to be the idle position of that. So we don't want to play our hurting animation, of course, if it's in hurting equals false and the game over equals false or the game win equals true, okay? So we're resetting the hurt animation. So we could go back here, we could do a comment, call this hurt anim state. There we go, perfect. All right, next up, now we're gonna do the jump area effect. So if you remember, we have two collision areas, one for the actual player box that he can get hurt, which is right there, the hurt box, and then one for the jump box, so where we can hurt other enemies, okay? So to do that, we're gonna go ahead, right down here, we're gonna start off with a for statement, like a for loop, so it's gonna basically loop through these. So we're gonna do a for area, just lowercase area, in jump box dot get overlapping areas, so anything going inside of our jump box, which is right here, so anything inside of this jump box collision shape 2D, we're going to go ahead and do an if the area dot name equals enemy hurt box. So if anything enters the jump box with the area name of enemy hurt box, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to set our velocity dot y to a negative jump force. Oops. So basically making our player jump if he jumps on top of an enemy, so he gets like an extra little boost, which looks pretty cool. We're also going to go ahead and add a times jumped to 1. Okay, so if we jump on an enemy, it still doesn't it still counts as a jump. So we still can only jump one more time after jumping on top of the enemy. All right, awesome. Now we're going to do another one. This one is going to be if area dot name, oopsie, dot name equals win area. Then we're going to go ahead And we're going to set game win to true. We're also going to go ahead and do anim.play reset, which is going to be our idle position, because we don't want the player to get stuck in a walking motion or a hurting motion. We want to make sure he stays in the reset one. And we're also going to do the win label dot visible and equal that to true. Okay, awesome, because we want to make sure that the player knows that he won the game. All right, perfect. All right, so that's all it for the jump box one. So we can go ahead and give this a comment. Let's call this jump box area. Let's do the next one now. This one's going to be for the actual hurt box. Let's go ahead and add that. So we're going to do a for area in, we called it hurt box. Yep, hurt box dot get overlapping areas. And we're going to do something similar to what we did with the one above it. We're going to go ahead and do another if. So if area name equals out of bounds, so anywhere in the out of bounds area. Then we're going to want to do a couple things. First thing is set the game over. We're going to set that to true, because we know it's game over if we set out of bounds. Well, don't forget your semicolon up here, or your colon. Then inside of here, we want to set the shook. So we're going to go ahead and do if times shook is equal to 0. Then we're going to do just what we did with the other one. We're going to go ahead, apply shake, and then do a times shook. We're going to set that to 1. Or we could do plus equals 1. Just like that. Awesome. All right, because again, we don't want this to just keep looping and then keep giving a shaking effect to our player. Awesome. We're also going to go ahead and do the hurt anim dot play, and we're going to set this to hurting. Awesome. We're also going to go ahead and do the anim dot play death for our death animation. Awesome. This might be a little repetitive with what we did, but I really just want to make sure you understand the state of the player when he hits the out of bounds. Okay, awesome. All right, now what we're going to do is another one for the enemies. So we're going to do another if area dot name, make sure you spell it right, name equals we're going to do enemy. So if the player runs into the enemy and hurting is equal to false, because what we can do sometimes is if we run into enemy, we're going to be in that hurting state for a couple seconds, and we don't want to keep getting hurting over and over again. So we have a little bit of time to run away from the enemy that's hurting us. We're going to go ahead, oopsie. We're going to go ahead and do hurt by enemy. And this is a function we're going to create in a little bit, but we can hold this now for a minute. We're also going to do another if area name equals coin. Then we're going to go ahead and do our coin count plus equals 1, because we're going to add a coin, of course, if we run into a coin. Okay, now this is going to stay red for a second because we don't have this function added yet. That's fine. We're going to get to it in just a bit. All right, so make sure you have all this down. I know that was a lot, so make sure you have everything down for the hurt box. Let's give that a comment as well. We can call this just the hurt box area. Make sure you have everything down for the out of bounds part right here, everything for the enemy part right here, and also the coin part as well. Make sure it's all spelled correctly. All right, Then of course, going back, we did the jump box one. Make sure you have everything set for the win area, the enemy hurt box. Make sure you have everything set for the hurt anim state. All right. Make sure you have everything for the game over state as well. The restart game state, the shake strengths value, the player health state, the jump anim, the player anim state, player input direction, player jump button, limit gravity, and reset area. Okay, and this is all inside of that physics process delta. Okay, awesome. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to go ahead and save. All right, so far so good. All right, let's go ahead and add our last function. This one's going to be the hurting function we have not added yet, the hurt by enemy, right over here. All right, so this one's going to be outside of the physics process. Let's go ahead and add this real quick. I'm going to add an enter down there. Let's do a function. Now make sure it's starting at the beginning. So we're going to call it function, and this is going to be hurt by enemy, semicolon. Awesome. Again, that should be gone up here now. It's no longer being read because we've created it. All right, inside of here, we're going to add, starting off, an if statement. So if game over equals false, we're going to go ahead, apply shake. All right, awesome. Then outside of the if statement, we're going to do our hurt enum dot play. We're going to play the hurting animation. After that, we're going to go ahead and do our hurting. We're going to set that to true. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our hurt timer. Hurt timer dot start, because we're going to start the timer that we set. If you remember, it's right over here. I think we set it to 2 seconds. We're going to start our timer. Okay, then we're going to do player health minus equals 1, because we lose health if we run into the enemy and get hurt. We're also going to do an await. We're going to await for our hurt timer, which is right down here, hurt timer dot timeout. So anything that's waiting for that timer is not going to happen until it is in the timeout setting. Once it is in timeout though, we're going to go ahead and do hurting, and we're going to set that back to true. Okay, awesome. Or no, this one's going to be set to false, because when we're no longer hurting, we're setting that to false. Okay, awesome. All right, make sure you got all that down. We can give that a comment if you want to. It's a little self-explanatory, but this is going to be the hurt by enemy function. All right, awesome. All right, perfect. Go ahead and save that. Now we can't test the game yet because we're missing a couple of the components, but we're going to add those in a couple next sections. All right, so far so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to create the camera. We're going to start off creating a camera 2D in the main node. Then we're going to add all the heart and coin images to the camera 2D. We're also going to be adding the text for the game win, lose, and coin count. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started. So we're going to be creating the camera 2D. So let's go to the main scene over here. I'm going to go to 2D view. Awesome. All right, so what we want to do is we want to go ahead, right click on the main node, add child node, and we should be able to add a camera 2D. Awesome. So by default, our camera is just going to be currently that box we have around the screen. But if we want to set something specifically for the camera, such as maybe a camera that follows around the player, like in a game like this, then we're going to want to use a camera 2D. And camera 2D can be moved around just like any node. There's also some other settings in here, such as the offset, the anchor mode, zoom ability. We're going to leave most of this the same for now though. We're going to see it in action in just a bit. All right, we're going to add a couple things inside of the camera 2D, such as all the hearts, such as all the labels and text and all that stuff. So we're going to right click on it. We're going to go to add child node. And the first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and add the labels real quick. So let's add a label. And if I remember, we have a list of all the label names we have in our player script. So if I go back to script, scroll up to our variables, we kind of already had a name we wanted to use. So we have win label and we have label coin. We also have game over label. So let's rename this one here. Let's call this one the win label. Make sure it's spelled correctly. Awesome. Let's go ahead and we're going to just duplicate this, Control D. Let's change the name of this one to we just do label coin. Let's select it, Control D again. And let's go ahead and just do game over label. All right, awesome. All right, back to 2D view. All right, so this is going to be our box for the camera. So let's go ahead and put everything we want in it. So for our label win, let's go ahead and just say you win, exclamation point. All right, I know you can't see it for now, but we can go ahead and stretch that out. Make sure you're using your pointer tool. I'm simply going to put it somewhere relatively in the middle. Awesome. Let's go ahead and center it. There we go. Let's center it there as well. Move it up a little bit. All right. Now we need to give it label settings, new label settings. Click that. Of course, we want to make this a little bit bigger. So let's go ahead and increase the size of it. Let's see what 80 looks like. Maybe 100 might be a little better. Maybe actually 120 might even be better than that. Yep, I like that. Awesome. Now, because we have a lot of colors in the background, I want to make sure to give this an outline so we can see the text better. So we can select the outline right over here. Let's go ahead and give this a size. Let's do 30 and see how that looks for now. Make sure to change the color to something like black. All right, looks pretty good to me. We can maybe increase the outline a little bit more. I'm going to try 40. There we go. I like that. Awesome. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up a little bit. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this invisible because, of course, when we first start the game, I don't want to be able to see that. Let's do the one over here now. I'm going to move that up a little bit so they're next to each other. Let's do the game over label. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bigger, just like I did with the win one. Something like that. Awesome. Let's make sure the text is going to be centered. Let's make sure it's centered for both. Then let's go ahead and say game over frowny face. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and give it a new label setting. Click that. Let's do the font. If I remember, we did 120. There we go. We also had an outline. And you know what I want to do? I actually want to change the font color to something like red to signify it's a bad thing when game over happens. Oops. There we go. All right, awesome. We got red text there. Perfect. Next thing we want to do, let's give a color to the outline of black, and then let's go ahead and make that 40 so it matches the game win. Awesome. All right, next thing I want to do, I want to make this visible real quick just so we can make sure they're on the same location. So I'm going to move my game over text up a little bit. Doesn't need to be perfect, but as long as it looks relatively the same, should be okay. All right, awesome. I think that's pretty good. All right. Good, we have the win label and the game over label. Let's go ahead and make them both invisible with the little eyeball right there. Awesome. Let's go ahead and do the label coin text now. Let's go ahead and make it a little bigger first. It doesn't have to be too big. Let's go ahead and just well, we can just do 0 actually. Well, make sure it's 0. There we go. All right. And what I want to do is I want to keep all that the same, but I do want to change the label settings. Let's go ahead and make this one a little bit bigger. Definitely not as big as the game over and game win, but maybe something like 30 might be good. Maybe a little bigger. Could try 50. Yep, you might change that later, but for now I think it's okay. I also want to give it a black outline. Let's go ahead and make the outline 20. Might be too much, but let's see. Nope, I think it looks pretty good. Awesome. All right, and we're going to put this somewhere on the top left next to a coin so we kind of can tell what it is for. We'll keep that there for now. Okay, let's go ahead and add the hearts now real quick. So we're going to right click on camera 2D, add child node, and we're going to use an image. Let's see if I can find the right one. It's going to be in the control, if I can find it. It is going to be maybe it's called picture or something. Picture, nope, don't see it. It should be image node, but let's see if I can find that. Let me double check the name. It's going to be it's a text direct actually. Whoopsie, getting the names mixed up. So we're going to do a text direct. There we go. I just think it's an image because it has that little image. So I always think the name is image. Awesome, we're going to add that there. We're going to call this, if I remember, we're going to call this empty heart 3, because we're starting at 3 on the left and going to 1 as we go over. So we have empty heart 3. So this is basically kind of like a sprite 2D, except it's going to be used for our UI ones, all right? So let's go ahead and find the heart image, or the empty heart image. Looks like it's right here. It's tile underscore 0046. So let's go ahead and take that, put that there, and there you go. Perfect. Now make sure to set the texture to the nearest so it's less blurry. Awesome. We're also going to go ahead and increase the size. I think it's a little small. Let's go to layout. You should see transform. And once you're at transform, you can go ahead and set the size. Let's go set the size to 3 and see how that looks. It's a little big. Maybe we could do like 2.5. Perfect, I like that. Awesome. Now we're on the move tool still, so I'm just going to move it over here and move it up to the top, just like that. Okay, awesome. Now we have empty your heart 3. So we're going to have 3, 2, and 1 right here. So let's go ahead and add each of those. So I'm going to control D, and I'm going to go ahead and just move this over, control D again, move it over again. Awesome. And let's make sure the numbers are correct. So this one here is going to be 2. This one here is going to be 1. Awesome. All right, now that we have empty hearts, we need to get the full hearts. So if I remember what we called them, we can check it in the script. I think we called it just full heart 1, full heart 2, full heart 3. Okay, make sure we say the same name. So let's go ahead and do the third one first, control D. Now, what we want to do though is we want to make sure these are above each of them so the layering is correctly. So let's go ahead and change the empty to full. Awesome. Change that 4 to a 3. And then of course we have to change the actual sprite. So let's go ahead and find the full heart sprite, which is right here, 0044.png. Let's drag and drop that onto there. And there we go. Awesome. All right, perfect. Let's double check. Was that a capital F? Or nope, it's a lowercase f. Okay. Awesome. All right, let's do that same thing now for the others. Let's go ahead, control D on this one. Let's change the name correctly. It's going to be full heart 2. Awesome. Let's go ahead, make sure we're selecting it, or you don't have to really select it. We just have to drag and drop that onto there, and there we go. Awesome. Let's do the last heart, control D. Go ahead, change the empty to full, and then go ahead, change that to 1. Awesome. Drag and drop the full heart right into there. Perfect. All right, now we just need one more thing, and that's the coin image right here. So what we can do simply is take something like the empty heart 3, control D it. I'm going to call this coin image, and I'm simply going to just drag it down. And let's go ahead and find that coin image. We can readjust the text in a second also. Should be a gold coin just like this, tile underscore 0151. Let's take that, drag and drop it into there. There's our coin. Awesome. Now we just need to readjust our text for the coin label. Simply move it over to the right a little bit and up. Awesome. I like it. So far, so good. All right, well, now what we can do is actually hit play and see how it looks in screen. So let's hit play. It's going to ask us if we want to set this as our current scene. Let's select current scene. And if we hit play, there's our screen. Now this is going to readjust to our player, which will be on here. But I think this UI for our hearts and the coin looks pretty good. We could move that text 0 a little closer to the coin. So I'm going to go ahead, close that, and just simply slide it over a little bit. Save that. Let's go ahead, see how that looks. And there we go, maybe up a little bit more. You can adjust this however you want. I just want to do it, I think, like that. Save that. And perfect. Awesome, I love it. All right, so far so good. Don't forget to save. All right, so in this section, we're going to create a following script. Now this script is going to be attached to both the camera and the background, and all it's going to do is allow those two items to follow around the player. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. All right, let's get started on creating the camera and background script. Let's go ahead, start off with the camera one. So select the camera. Let's go ahead and add a script. We can keep camera_2D as the name. Awesome. All right, this is going to be a pretty simple script. Let's go ahead and get rid of everything except the extends camera 2D. So we're going to be adding only one variable in here. We're going to do an @onReady, and we're going to do var for variable. We're going to call this target_node, which is going to be the node we are tracking. And I'm going to equal that to what our player is going to be, which is going to be a $, double quotes, // capital P player. Awesome. All right. Then we're going to need a function process, or process function. And we're going to use a special kind, which is going to be a process delta. But we're going to be putting a float type in here. So we're going to do a float. And we're going to go ahead and do a dash and an arrow symbol just like that. So all this is doing is allowing us to pass in a float value to this. So that's why we're doing this. Oh, we forgot one thing. We need a void as well. So we're going to be passing in a specific type of float or changing something significantly every single time. That's why we need that there. So then we're going to go ahead and do an if statement. And we're going to take our target node. We're going to do a .game over, because we got to make sure that the game is not over, because once the game is over, we don't want to have our camera and background to move anymore, because our player is going to be falling down farther so we can't see him anymore. We're going to go ahead and in here we're going to add now our actual variable for the new position. So we're going to do variable new capital POS for position equals our target node dot transform dot origin, and we're going to add a vector 2 of 0, -120. Now this here is going to create the new position for us, which is going to be using that target node of our player for its transform.origin plus a vector 2 of -120. And the reason I'm adding a little bit more of the y value is because I like the screen to be a little bit higher up, so it shows the player more on a leveled field. All right, and you'll see it. We can change it if you really want to. I just like to have that there just in case you want to change the position of the camera. We're also going to do a set_position. Position, and then of course pass in that new position. All right, awesome. All right, perfect. Make sure you got all that down. Now we need to create one for the background, and it's going to be the same thing. We're just not going to, of course, add the extends camera 2D. So we're going to go ahead on the background. First save that. Add a new script to the background. We can keep it at background GD. And simple enough, just go ahead, get rid of everything here. Go to your camera_2D. Copy all this. Go to your background and just paste it in. Awesome. All right, save that as well. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and test this out. We're going to go ahead, find the player. Should be all the way towards the bottom, that player.tscn. Let's take the player, drag and drop it into the main node. Awesome. All right, now if we go ahead, go to 2D view, save everything again. You can hit play. See how that looks. Now, whoops, we forgot a couple things here. Let's close that. First off, our player is starting over here, so let's go ahead and move the player. Make sure you're selecting the main node for the player. I'm going to put him somewhere on the platform over there. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead, save that, hit play. It looks like our resting animation is having a couple issues. We can fix that really quick. And looks like our jumping isn't enough, so we might need to add that a little bit more. We can do that pretty simply though. Close that. So first things first is let's change the jump force. So select into the player right here. The jump force is going to be on the right of the main node of the player. And since it's not really going up that much, we can simply go ahead and set it to something like, let's do 500. Enter there. Perfect. Now the animation is having issues with the animation hurt. And if you select it and you're on the rest animation, currently the visibility of that rect is still going on and the self-modulate is still going on as well. So just go ahead and deselect each of those. Go ahead, hit save on there. Awesome. Let's go back to main view. Let's go ahead, select the main player here, and that should be at 500 still. Awesome. Let's go ahead, hit play. There we go. Awesome. And our player now jumps a little better. He's currently still red. That means our resting one is not the right color. Let's switch that again. Go back to player. Select the, I think it's this one here. Yep. Let's go ahead, make sure you're in resting. Let's go ahead and take that and go up to white and fully visible. Well, it shouldn't even be visible in the first place. So we can go ahead and leave it like that if we really wanted to. That's fine also. I think it still looks okay. Let's go ahead and just key value that. And you can click that there to keep that one active. Awesome. Let's save that. Let's go ahead, hit play. And there we go. Now our player is no longer red. If we jump down and get to that game over section, it plays the animation. Awesome. But now, of course, the background isn't set correctly, so we need to go ahead and adjust that. We can do that a couple different ways. I think the easiest way might just be to change the offset and put it on top of the screen over here. So we can simply do that easily by taking the background here and simply just moving it up right over here. Awesome. Let's save that, hit play. Looks like it's still having issues. We might need to change it inside the script. Let's go ahead, Control Z to bring that back. Now we can do that inside the script if we want to. I'm going to go to script and simply we could change this here, but you know what? Instead of going in the script and changing things, we could just go ahead and change the actual offset of the background. But you know what? That's not going to work because if I move the background for this, it's going to go ahead and not move it at all. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that at 0. What we could do is simply go into here. We could put all these in a node and readjust it. That might not be too hard. So let's go ahead, right click, add child node. We could do a node 2D and simply take each one of our backgrounds and just drag them all into the main one. Oops, we'll make sure I'm holding on the right one. Make sure I'm selecting each one and then not selecting control key, just drag them into the node 2D. Take the node 2D and again, we're just going to drag it up here, place it in there. Awesome. Save that. Let's go ahead, hit play. See how that looks? And there we go. Awesome. So now the background follows us. I like it. Now you see how I made that negative 120 for the Y position? That made it go up a little bit. If you wanted it to readjust, you can do that also. But I think it looks pretty good like this. I like having the mountains in a spot that's a little bit above the middle spot. And there we go. Awesome. I like it. The hearts disappear, the shaking effect, and the game over. All right. Awesome. Let's go ahead, close that out. Let's save. So far, so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to create the enemy objects. We're going to start off creating the enemy object with a character body 2D. Then we're going to add a sprite to the enemy. Then we're going to add some collision areas to the enemy as well. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. All right, let's get started creating the enemy objects. So we're going to start off creating an object inside the main node. We could create it as its own scene, but I think it's easier just to put it in the main node for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on main, add child node. We're going to use a character body 2D. So let's go ahead, select that, go ahead, create. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to be doing a couple things. It's going to be asking for a certain collision. Before we do that though, let's go ahead and add the sprite 2D. So let's right click, add child node. We're going to add that sprite 2D just so we can give it an image to work off of. Let's go ahead and find the image I want to use. It's going to be this little beetle. Let's go ahead and find that. It should be with the characters, I think, or right up here. So we're going to use this one here, 0021 tile. So let's go ahead, grab that. I'm going to drag and drop it onto the sprite 2D. Perfect. Now to make it match the same size as the player, I think we did 2. So let's go to transform. Let's go to the scale, set that to 2. And I think that's what we did. We might have done 3. We can double check though by going to the player, selecting the player sprite 2D. And looks like scale was 3 actually. You're right. There we go. Let's go to sprite 2D. Let's go to 3. And there we go. Awesome. Yep, that looks a little better. Okay, so we got this player here. I'm going to go ahead and just move him where I think I want him, like right over here for now. Zoom in a little bit. Let's go ahead and set the texture. Let's set that to nearest so it's less blurry. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to add a couple things. Before we do that though, let's select the character body 2D. And we do want to do one thing here. We're going to go ahead and select the collision, or not the collision, the ordering, or I think it's right here. Yeah, and what we're going to want to do here is we're going to set the layers to 2, okay? So go ahead and select both of these layers to 2. And the reason why we're doing this is because the player is going to be on layer 1, all right? And we want to be able to walk through the enemies after we get hurt by them. We don't just want to stop on them. So that's why we're going to set these layers to 2. But the one issue we're going to run into is that our platforms are not set to 2. They're all set to 1. So we're also going to have to go into each platform and go to the ordering, not the ordering, the collision, and make sure to select both 1 and 2, okay? Because that means it'll affect each of the both orderings that we have for both the player and the enemy, okay? Because if we didn't set 2 for these, the enemy would just fall right through these platforms, okay? So let's go ahead and make sure we set both of those collisions, 1 and 2 for each one's here. Awesome. Once you got those down, let's go back to the character body 2D. Double ensure that both of these things are set. There we go. Awesome. All right, so now we can move on. It's going to ask for that collision, so let's go ahead and create that. We're going to right click, add child node. Let's give it a collision shape 2D. Now this collision shape 2D is just going to be for the object itself. It's not actually going to be for anything we collide into it with the player. So let's go ahead and give it a shape. Let's just do a rectangle. And what we want to do, of course, is bring it over to on top of our player. And you know what? We actually messed up here because we moved the sprite over there. We didn't move the actual player, so let's Control Z on that. And let's go ahead and zero out the position of this guy here. Let's go ahead, zero over there. Select the main character body and move it so everything moves with it just like that. Awesome. All right. Now for this, let's go ahead, and all I really want to do is just make it go down a little bit to where its feet are going to be, so probably about like there. Awesome. I don't really care if it's spread out because we're going to have other collisions for that for the player. So let's keep that like there for now. Okay, awesome. Now let's go ahead and create an area 2D. We're going to right click, create node. We're going to do area 2D. Let's rename this one. This one here is just going to be the enemy one. And I think we can keep it lowercase. Yep, enemy, enter. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, right click, add child node. We're going to give this one a collision shape 2D as well. There we go, awesome. Now the enemy one is going to be the lower part because remember, we're going to have an area where the enemy can get stepped onto and defeated. So that's going to be the top part right here. So let's go ahead, give this one a rectangle and simply make it the lower half. So let's do something like there to there to here and all the way up to about there, okay? So that top part is going to be the jump area. So let's keep that for there. Let's go ahead, right click again on it, add child node. Let's go ahead and we're going to call this one enemy hurt box, I think is what we called it. Let's call it enemy, oh whoopsie, we got to first create it, of course. So area 2D, double click it. All right, now we can call it the enemy hurt box. And if you remember, this is going to match up with our player script one. So if you go into the script, go to our player, it should be this one right here, the enemy hurt box. Make sure that's spelled the same or it's not going to do what we want it to do. Awesome. Let's go back here. All right, so select again, enemy hurt box. Let's go ahead. Let's create a collision shape 2D on it. Just like that, awesome. Let's go ahead, give it a new rectangle shape. And this one here, like I was saying earlier, we're gonna make it the top part of the enemy. So we're gonna do it from here all the way to here, okay? Awesome. All right, perfect, exactly what we want. All right, perfect. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it an animation, and we can also rename it entirely. I'm gonna call this just the main enemy 1 because we're gonna have another type of enemy. So we have that there, perfect. We need to give the enemy some animations, so let's right click on it, add child node, and we're gonna give it an animation player. All right, so let's go ahead and give it the death animation first. So let's go ahead and create new. I think I want to call this death. Yeah, or no, dead. Let's call it dead. There we go. Awesome. All right, so the dead animation is going to be very similar to the death animation of our player. I simply just want to flip it around and make it disappear all the way to the bottom. So what we could do first, of course, is go to the resting one. Well, it's not going to give us the resting one until we create the first one. So I'm going to go ahead, find its position. Let's click on the sprite over here. Let's key the position values of 0x and 0y, create, awesome. Should give us the rest one. All right, so for this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and we wanna key value the x and y. Let's do that for this one as well. We also wanna key value the rotation because we're gonna change that in the next one. So hit create, awesome. All right, so that should be good for the rest one. Let's select back to the dead one. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the, let's go to the 0.5 second and simply let's move the sprite upwards. So I want the sprite to move up. Actually, you know what? We're not going to go up at all. Let's just go straight down. So let's go all the way down, which is going to be up with the y value. Let's just do like 200. There we go. Well, we're going to need a lot more than that because we can still see it, of course. I want to make it get completely disappeared. So let's do 600. There we go, perfect. Okay, and we're also going to go ahead. Oh, I forgot to key value it. Oopsie. Let's make that 600 again. And then key value it. Perfect. So we're going to start off there. Then we're going to 600 it. And what I want to do is I want to spin it. So let's spin it. Key value it. Create. Hit play and see how that looks. Oh, it looks like it didn't start spinning. Nope, because we didn't key value it at 0. We need to do that. All right. Key value it at 0 first. There we go. Now it should spin. Awesome. Just what I want. Let's go ahead. Let's go back. Let's change the value here of how long the animation is to a 0.5. And it's not going to be looped, so we can keep it the same. Let's hit play. Perfect. So when we step on the enemy and it's dead, it's going to just spin away and move. Now we're going to turn off all the collisions though with the code, so we don't need to worry about that right now. Let's make sure the resting one is the same though. Let's hit play on the resting one. Awesome. Now for the resting one though, we could add a little animation for its feet because we have a separate animation for it over here. We could do that. Let's do that while we're here. Let's go ahead and we're going to make this a little longer. Let's make it to the 0.5 seconds. Okay. And let's go ahead and let's key value its current sprite right here. Create. Awesome. Let's go ahead and move to the, what is it, 2.5 for the middle of that. Awesome. Let's drag and drop the 002 sprite right here. Let's key value it. There we go. And then we can change it back. Or actually, I don't think we need to change it back at all. If it's going to be looped, just make sure you select looping right there. Awesome. If we hit play, there we go. It has a little bobbing effect. I like it. So that looks like it's moving around a little bit. Perfect. Awesome. All right, make sure you got that there. Let's go ahead and pause that. Let's save that, Control S. Awesome. If we go back to the death animation, let's play it one more time. Perfect. All right, and you can make that longer. You can slow that down. You can change the rotation if you want to. That's completely up to you. I just think this looks pretty good overall. Let's go back to rest. All right. Now, one more thing we need to add to the main enemy 1 is a target, because in the script we're going to be creating a target for where the enemy is going to be walking back and forth from. So first thing I'm going to do is just move my player over a little bit. Let's move the player over here. Now for the enemy, we're going to add a marker 2D. So let's right click on it, add child node, marker 2D. Awesome. And this marker 2D we don't have to rename. This is just going to be where the enemy is going to be walking back and forth from. And I think a good spot would just be right here for now, just for testing purposes. If you were going to extend this game more, you could totally add different markers and make them go wherever you want. That's up to you. But I think this is good for our main enemy 1. Awesome. All right, go ahead and save that. So far, so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to get started on creating the enemy script. We're going to start off creating the enemy script on the main enemy node. Then we're going to add the ability for the enemy to move. And last but not least, we're going to change the enemy state. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. All right, let's get started creating the enemy script. Let's go ahead and select the main node of the enemy 1. Let's go to add script. We can keep it as main underscore enemy 1. Let's go ahead and create that. Awesome. All right, let's get rid of everything we have here and start from scratch. You can leave the extends character body 2D. All right, let's go ahead and add all the variables we need. It's not going to be as many as the player one, but there still is going to be quite a few. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with an @export. And we're going to go ahead and do a gravity, just like we did with the player. We're going to equal that to 30, but we might have to change it. Let's go ahead and do an @onReady now. And we're going to call this the hurt box. And we're going to equal that to our hurt box that's currently already existent. So let's go ahead, find the enemy hurt box, drag and drop it into there. Perfect. All right. We're going to go ahead and do another @onReady. We're going to call this the anim, which is going to represent the animation. Let's go ahead, equal that to the animation player for the enemy. Awesome. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and do some more onReadies. onReady variable. This is going to be the collision box 1. Let's go ahead, equal that to our collision shape 2D. It can be any of them. Let's just do the main one for now. Awesome. Let's copy this whole thing because we're going to do this for each one of our collision boxes. Let's go ahead, add all these guys here. Let's go ahead and make this one 2 and make this one 2. And let's get rid of the value it has right here. Let's drag and drop the one for the enemy in here. Awesome. Let's do the next one. Drag and drop the one for the collision shape 2D. All right, perfect. All right, looking good. Let's go ahead, add some more things in here. It looks like we forgot to put the 3. Whoopsie. There we go. All right, let's do the next couple of variables. We're also going to do another onReady. This one's going to be for the sprite itself. Let's go ahead, equal that to the sprite 2D inside the main enemy 1. There we go. Awesome. Let's do another @export. This is going to be a variable for the speed. Let's go ahead and keep that at 20 for now. Let's do another @export variable. And let's make this limit. And we're going to keep this at 0.5. All right, let's do another @export. Let's do another var endpoint. This is all going to be for the movement of the player, or the enemy, I guess. And this is going to be a marker 2D. All right, perfect. Awesome. A couple more. Let's do another variable. This one's going to be for the start position. This one here is going to be for the end position, which is going to be its starting position, basically. And this one here is going to be a variable is dead, and it's going to be a bool that we are going to currently set to false. Awesome. All right, I know that was a lot. Make sure you got all that down. All the ones here, 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 and here. Awesome. Go ahead, save that. So far, so good. All right, let's continue. We're going to start creating some of the functions now. So below all of our variables, let's go ahead and we're going to start off with our ready function, which is everything starting on the start of the game. So underscore ready. Inside this ready, we're going to set a couple things. Starting off with the start position, we're going to equal that to the end position. Or not the end point, the end position. There we go. We're also going to go ahead and set the end position equal to the endpoint dot global position. Make sure we spelled that right. Global position. Yes. Awesome. All right. So we're setting the starting position to the end position, and then we're also going to set the end position equal to the endpoint dot global position. Okay. Awesome. Make sure you have all that. That's going to set everything up for our movement. Then we're going to make another function. We're going to do the change direction function. So once we reach the endpoint, we want to, of course, change our direction back. So let's go ahead and do a function for that. We're going to call this change direction and give it some parentheses, colon. All right. So in here, we're going to go ahead and set a variable of temp end. We're going to make that equal to end position. All right, awesome. Then we're going to go ahead and do our end position. And we're going to go ahead and equal that to our start position. We're going to go ahead and set our start position, equal it to our temp end. Awesome. All right, so what we're doing here is we're just changing the direction of where we're going based on the start and end position, because again, we want our character to move towards the marker 2D, and then we want him to move back towards where he started, okay? So that's what this is doing here. Now, of course, we need to update the character's velocity. So let's create a function for that. We're going to create a function, call this update velocity, parentheses, colon, open that up. Then we're going to set a variable of move direction. We're going to make that equal to our end position minus the position of our current player. We're going to go ahead and create a simple if statement real quick. If move direction dot length, which is just the current length we have of our move direction, is greater than our limit. Then we're going to go ahead and change our direction. Okay, awesome. Then we're going to go ahead and set our velocity equals move position underscore position. Underscore position? I thought it was one word. What is it? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Move direction. Getting those two confused. Dot normalize. Normalized. And all that does is helps us get our float values figured out times the speed. Awesome. All right, perfect. So there you go. That's going to update our character's velocity. And we're making sure to change the direction if we get over our set limit or get less than our set limit. Okay, awesome. All right, looking good so far. I like it. All right, make sure you have all that down. I know that was a lot. Don't forget to save. So far, so good. All right, let's continue. So now we're going to work on the next function. It's going to be our physics process function, so the actual movements of the player. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and create it. Let's do function underscore physics process with delta inside of it. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to start off with a couple if statements. We're going to go ahead and do an if statement. If is dead is equal to false. Then we're going to go ahead and play our animation for it. So anim doesn't like it for some reason. is, oh, we forgot about that. There we go. Let's do anim dot play, and then we're going to set the dead animation. Awesome. All right, perfect. We can go ahead and give it a comment if we really want to. We can just say play death anim. Awesome. Let's do the next one. All right, next one is going to be the actual moving of the enemy. So we're going to say if is not on floor. Open that up. Let's set the velocity of dot y plus equals the gravity, so we can give our enemy the ability to fall down. We're going to do just what we did with the player. We're going to set if velocity dot y is greater than 1000. We're going to set the velocity dot y equal to 1000. Awesome. All right, perfect. Oh, don't forget your colon there. Awesome. All right, next up, well, we can comment on that there. So remember what it's for. We could just say gravity limit. Awesome. Let's do the next one. This one here is going to be for flipping the enemy to side based on where he's going. So if velocity dot x is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and set our sprite dot flip h equal to true. And just like we did with the other one, we're going to do elif velocity dot x is less than 0. Then we're going to go ahead, set our sprite, not the speed, sprite dot flip h equals false. Okay, awesome. Make sure you got that there. Perfect. All right, next thing we need to do is actually update the movement of our enemy. So this is not going to be in any of the actual code, but before we do that, let's do what we always do. Let's comment what we're doing here. Say this is flipping enemy. Awesome. All right, next up, this is going to be the movement, like I said, so we need to do that update velocity function. And we also need to do the move and slide function, okay? Awesome. Now you're going to see why we are doing this instead of doing all those if-else's, if the game is over and stuff, because we're actually just going to delete this enemy once he is dead, okay? So let's keep going. Well, we can update these with a comment also. Let's just say update movement. There we go. Next up, we're going to do a loop for the jump area. Let's go ahead and do a for area in our hurt box dot get overlapping areas, and another if statement in here, if area dot name is equal to, what was it, jump box. We can double check it if we click into player. Yep, jump box, like that. Awesome. Let's go back here, back to here. So jump box. So if that name equals jump box, we want to go ahead and do the hurting function, which we've not created yet. We're going to create it very soon. So we can leave that for now. Let's go ahead and create that hurting function. So this is going to be outside of everything. Before we do that though, let's just set a comment for this. Let's just say hitbox, so we know what that's for. Awesome. So this is going to be outside the function physics process. So we're going to go ahead and make sure it's all the way over here. Let's go ahead and create a function. This is going to be hurting. Let's go ahead, open that up. Now what we're going to do here is a couple things. First thing we're going to set is all of our collision boxes to disabled. And what this is doing is just making it not interact with things around it, which is exactly what we want to do, because once the player is dead, he's going to fall down and he shouldn't be able to be interacted with. So we're going to have such as the collision shape here. If you see this disabled, that's all we're doing is we're turning it basically on and off with that disabled equals true or false, okay? So we're going to set all of these to true. So let's go ahead and just copy this. Let's do one for each one. So we're going to have 2, oopsie, 2, and we're going to have 3 as well. Awesome. We're also going to set is dead equal that to true. We're going to go ahead and do anim.play, and we're going to set that to dead as well. Now, after that, we're simply going to do an await anim dot animation finished, because we don't want to get rid of the enemy though until that animation is over. Now, how do we get rid of the enemy? Just like we did in the previous project, we're just simply going to do a queue free, just like that. Awesome. All right, I know that was a lot. Make sure you got all that down. I'm going to add a space here so it looks a little better. Make sure you got everything in the herding function down. The collisions is dead, the animation, await, and the queue free. And of course, everything we have here, such as the hitbox loop, the update movement, the flipping of the enemy, the gravity limit, and the play death anim. Okay, so let's save all that, Control S. Awesome. All right, let's go to the main scene here. Let's select the main enemy 1. Make sure everything's selected. Let's test it out. Let's go ahead and hit play. Let's see how this goes. Make sure there's no errors. Looks like we had an error here. Doesn't like our global position. Invalid access endpoint. Let's double check what I had there. Endpoint dot global position doesn't like our global. Oh, you know why it's doing that? It's because we never set it. So let's go back to 2D view. If you select the main enemy here, it's going to be looking for the endpoint. So we need to set the endpoint. And the reason why I did this is because we could have multiple endpoints if we really wanted to, or we could have ones in different areas, okay? So let's save that. Let's turn off the game, hit play again, and let's see what happens. Whoopsie. Well, you know why it's doing this is because we did not set the right resting animation. Let's go to animation. Let's go to dead. We hit play here, it's going to do that, and we don't want that. So we do want it to loop, we know that, but we don't want all this position stuff. So let's turn all these off. We can keep, now we don't even need that actually. We really just need is the sprite one. So let's hit play, perfect. All right, let's go back, save that. Let's go ahead, hit play. And there we go, it's a little slow, but looks like it works. If we run into it, we should get hurt like that. We can also jump on top of it. It should defeat the enemy though. Doesn't look like it likes it though. Minus position, end position. Doesn't like our vector 2. Invalid, nil, vector 2. Let's see what that's doesn't like. Our update velocity doesn't like. We're doing a var move direction equals endpoint position. Okay. Let's double check that. Let's save that. All right, I think I found the problem real quick. We got a little typo, something. The temp end is actually supposed to equal the position. So, oh wait, whoops, not here. The start position on ready is supposed to equal the position. All right, awesome. Because of course, you know, we're starting, we need to equal that to our current position of the object. All right, awesome. So make sure you have that set there. Okay, perfect. Go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead, hit play, and see how that looks. I also bumped up the speed of the enemy. You select over here, you can see that the gravity 30, speed 50, and limit I set to 1. That was originally at 0.05, but I think 1 works a little better. Let's set that at 1. And then if you want to set this to 5 or 50, that'll work a lot better too for testing. Okay, let's save that. I'm going to restart the game. All right, let's let this play. As you can see, the enemy's going towards its endpoint and then going back, and it should just keep doing that. Let's go ahead and jump on the enemy. Now, what's going on though is it's not playing the full death animation, so we need to go ahead and fix that real quick. Let's select the animation player. Now let's make sure we're on each one. The walking one here, let's make sure that one is in a loop. Looks like it's working correctly there. Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and hit play. It should be playing that on start, which I don't think it is. Nope, it's not. So we might have to add that in the code. Let's go to script. Let's go ahead and find its animation. We can just copy the anim.play and simply go ahead and just set this on ready. We can go ahead and set this to the rest one. Perfect. Let's save that. Let's hit play. And there we go. Should be moving. Looks like it's not doing it still. Let's go back here. Let's double click the enemy. All right, oh, it's on reset. Did I set that to reset? Yeah, I am. Let's set this to physics one instead. I think we're putting out the wrong one. Let's go over here and set this at the beginning. Save that. Let's hit play. And still doesn't like it. Nope, now it's working. I guess it just took a second to start. Let's hit X there. Let's do something here. Let's copy that. You know what we should do? We should do an else. Let's do an else here. And let's go ahead, set that there, save that. Let's go ahead, hit play. And there we go. Looks like it still doesn't like us moving it for some reason. Only when we hit it, it will start playing the animation. Interesting. Let's see what's going on with that. Let's see what's going on with that. It doesn't like it. Anim play. Let's select the main one here. Nope, nothing there. This might be a glitch with Godot. Save that. Well, either way, let's get the death animation to work correctly. If we go back to 2D, we select the animation player. Let's go to the death animation, dead over here. All right, if we hit play, currently it's not working because we turned it off, so we got to make sure to turn it on. So let's go ahead and select each of those on, and it should just fall like that. Okay, let's save that. Let's go to play. And looks like, oh, that's why it wasn't working before. Looks like it's playing this one on start. And you know why it's doing that? If we go to script, it's because it is dead is equal to false. So we need to switch that and set that to true. That's what's going on there. Save that. Let's try it again. And yep, now he's moving the way he should be. And we can go ahead and defeat him. Awesome. Let's see what happens though when we hit him. I'm going to go ahead and just jump off and restart the game. If we run into him, there we go. Now if you wanted to put this behind the player, which I think might look a little better, we can simply go into the Sprite 2D, and like we've done in the past, we can go into the ordering and we can simply set the Z value. But you know, I think a better way to do this would be to set the player Z value above everything. So let's go ahead and select the player Sprite 2D. Let's go to the ordering and simply set this to, just set it to 2 for now. Save that, go back to main, hit play. And if we run into the enemy, there we go, awesome. And we can jump on him still, perfect. All right, so far so good. Don't forget to save. All right, in this section, we're gonna create the second enemy type. Now this enemy is gonna be reusing the same script we just made, so it's gonna be pretty easy. The only difference is we're gonna make this enemy invincible. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. All right, let's get started on our second enemy type. This one's gonna be pretty easy because we have already done pretty much everything we need for our enemies. Let's go into the 2D view. All right, so let's go ahead and take our enemy 1. What we're gonna do is simply Control D to duplicate it, and we're simply gonna go ahead and rename it. So main enemy 2 is what we're gonna call it. Just like that, perfect. Now we're gonna go ahead and change the sprite for this enemy. I'm simply gonna go ahead and change it into this angry block. If I can find it, I think it's up a little bit. It's gonna be this one here. Let's drag and drop that into the enemy sprite. There we go. Let's move the entire enemy over though. I'm gonna put this enemy like right over here. He's gonna go up and down next to these 2 platforms. All right. You know what? We might actually move our right platform over a little bit just so we have a little bit more room. So I'm going to move that just a little bit also. Awesome. And back again to our enemy type 2. Perfect. Let me bring it up a little bit. Awesome. All right, next thing we're going to do, of course, is make our marker 2D. We're going to go ahead and simply bring that down to somewhere like here. Awesome, because we want this enemy to go up and down here. Now, because we want to make this enemy invincible, the easiest way to do that is just turn off its enemy hurt box. So we can go ahead and just turn it off here and here as well. And now it shouldn't be able to be affected, but it's going to still have every single other functionality of the enemy. Now the one thing though we do have to change, of course, is the animation, because it's still going to play the original animation. So if I hit play on the resting animation, it's going to do that one. So to work around that, an easy way is simply select it. And actually, you know what, instead of that, we can just go ahead and just change the sprites. So let's simply just go into the sprite itself. You know what though, if we edit this one, it's actually going to edit the other one also. So we are going to have to make this an entirely new animation player, but that's pretty easy. Let's just select the animation player here and delete the current one. There we go. Let's go right click on the enemy 2. Let's go ahead and add a new animation player. There we go, perfect. Now we do need to still give it the dead one, so let's just give it a dead one here. Awesome. And it's not going to give us the rest one though until we add something to this. So I'm simply just going to, we could just add something to the player position. So I'm going to go to transform, add a key value for that, for the sprite. Okay, and there it is. So there's our rest one. This is the real one we really want to worry about. And I'm simply going to go ahead and just make this 0.5 for length. And I'm going to enable the looping. Now we can go ahead and drag and drop in the tile for this. So let's go ahead and give it this one first. So I'm going to drag and drop this into our sprite 2D. There we go. Let's go ahead, key value it. Perfect. And let's go to the 0.25 area. And let's go ahead, drag and drop the other animation for it right over here. Key value it, create. Oh, it didn't take the first one. Make sure we have that first one in there. Key value it again. Yeah, there we go. So now we hit play. It should go ahead and do that while it's moving. Awesome. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and pause this. Let's go ahead and save. And we can try it out. Let's go ahead, hit play. And there's our enemy. Awesome. We might make this one go a little bit faster because it's a little slow, but overall I like it. Now this one again is invincible, so if I try to jump on its head, nothing's going to happen. We actually are still going to jump on top of it though. Now let's go ahead and get rid of that though. So it looks like it still is getting affected, and I think what we need to do is we need to turn it off. So let's go to the collision shape over here and go to disabled on. There we go. Let's save that. Let's hit play. Let's try one more time. We shouldn't be able to jump on top of it. And there we go. See, perfect. So we try to pass through it, it's just going to hurt us. Just like that. And that's exactly what we want, because we only want to be able to defeat that one, not this one here. All right. Let's make sure we can die in the air also. And there we go. Perfect. Now you could speed up our death animation if you wanted to, but that's up to you. Awesome. All right. Don't forget to save. So far, so good. All right. So in this section, we're going to create the coins. We're going to start off by creating the coin objects with an area 2D. Then we're going to ensure the coins can be collected. And we're also going to ensure our coin count goes up. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started creating the coin. It's going to be pretty simple. So what we're going to do, I'm going to close all the things we have here. We're going to right click, add new child. We're going to create this with an area 2D. And I'm simply going to call this coin. Awesome. All right, for our coin, we're going to right click, add child node. We're going to give it a sprite 2D so it can give it the coin object. Let's go ahead and find that. It should be down here somewhere. I think it is right here. It's going to be 0151. Let's go ahead and drag and drop that into our sprite 2D. And let's take our coin. Let's increase, let's increase the sprite size. With the transform, let's change that to 3 so it matches the other sprites. That might be a little too big, but yeah, it might be okay. Also, don't forget to change the texture to nearest so it blends really well. Awesome. All right, now that we have that, let's take the actual coin itself and bring it over. I'm gonna put it like right here. Awesome. Let's go ahead and add a collision shape. So add collision shape 2D. And oops, where is that collision shape? Oh, we didn't make it yet. We have to set the shape. Let's do that. Let's just do a simple new rectangle, and that's pretty good. We could make it a little bigger if we want to. Use the pointer tool. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. All right, perfect. All right, now that we got that there, I like it. What else could we add for this? Well, we actually need to add a script so it destroys itself after the player runs into it. So we can add that real quick. Select coin. Let's go to add. Let's go to create. All right, it's gonna be really simple. We're simply gonna have an at on ready var. Just call this box, which is gonna be its collision box. So box, and we're just gonna make that equal to itself because that's the area it is. Awesome. Then we're going to make a simple function underscore physics process. And all we're going to say is we're going to do a for area in box dot get overlapping areas. And we're going to go ahead, do a colon. We're going to do if area dot name is equal to, let's say, hurt box, which is going to be the player's big box around him. So hurt box. Then what we're going to do, oopsie, is simply queue free. Just like that. Awesome. All right, don't forget your semicolon or your colon right there. Let that load. There we go. Awesome. Super simple. Make sure to save that. Make sure you got that all there. Awesome. Let's go back to the 2D view. All right, let's test this out. Let's hit play. Let's let this load. And I'm going to jump over that enemy, and there we go. And our coin count went up as well, because if you remember, we have an update for our player script with all that. Awesome. All right, I'm going to turn this off. Don't forget to save. So far, so good. All right, so in this section, we're going to create the win area. We're going to start off creating the win area with an area 2D. Then we're going to ensure the game is in win state. Last but not least, we're going to ensure we can restart the game when it's won. Let's go ahead, jump right in, and get started. All right, let's get started creating the win area. So first thing we're going to do, of course, is create a new area. I'm going to close out that coin over there. Let's right click, add child node, area 2D, and we're going to call it, I think we're going to call it just win area. We have to make sure it matches up with what we put in our player script. So if you go to script, go to your player and scroll to where we have the jump box area, and you should see win area. Make sure it's spelled correctly. Awesome. All right, so now we have the win area here. All we need to do is we simply need to add a right click. Let's add a collision. Where is it? Collision shape 2D. And you know what we could also add here too, before we add just a collision shape 2D, is a little flag indicating that's the winning area. We could do that, right click, add child node, sprite 2D. Let's go ahead and find that flag. It should be somewhere in our art. I'm gonna look for that. Here we go. Yeah, we got a nice little flag. We could go ahead. If you wanted to, you could animate it also. That's up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure the texture is set to nearest. I'm going to go ahead, go to transform. Let's set that to 3 so it matches everything else. Awesome. All right, perfect. And what we want to do is simply set the collision on the bottom part of it. So let's add a collision shape to this. And all I really want to do is set the area to be something like there. So when you hit the ground behind the flag, you're set to win the game. So something like that. Awesome. All right, perfect. So that's our little win area. Let's just move this over here for now. Maybe we should add a couple more platforms to make the game a little better. let's go ahead and do another long platform. So I'm going to go ahead, Control D, and just put another long platform right there, and another short platform. Whoops, wherever it is. There it is. Control D. I'm going to go ahead and just put that right there. Maybe a little closer. Let's take our win area and simply just bring it over here and zoom in a little bit, because remember, we need to make sure this is above the current one on there. I'm going to go ahead, move that over there. Awesome. I might make sure that collision is just up a little bit, just in case, something like that. Awesome. And we could go like there. Perfect. Now, because we made our actual game a little longer, we got to make sure that out of bounds area is longer too. So let's go ahead and make sure we have our out of bounds area just far enough so our player can't jump off forever. I think that should be good. Perfect. Awesome. I like it. Maybe we want to add a couple more enemies. We could do that too. Let's take our other enemy 2, Control D, and I'm simply just going to move him right over there. Perfect. Maybe we could add one more beetle guy over here. Let's do that also. Let's go ahead, take this enemy, Control D, bring this guy, sure it's matched up still, somewhere like there. Awesome. And we could put a little bit more coins in there if we wanted to too. Maybe want to put like coin here. Now, one thing though we do need to remember is the coin area. We have to make sure it still says coin, because that's the way we made it. It might not let us do that actually. Nope, doesn't like it. Well, what we can do to fix that real quick is get rid of that coin there. We could add another area inside of it. So we could just simply add child node, area 2D, put that in there, change this. We could change this name here to main coin, and then change this one here to coin. Awesome. And it's going to ask us for a collision shape, so we can simply add that in there. Collision shape 2D, perfect. And then just give it a simple rectangle, just like we did with the one before. That's good enough. Awesome. So now we have that there, but now we need to go into the script of this and simply just reset where this is, which is right over here inside of it now. So it's just going to be coin. Perfect. Save that change. Now we can go over here to main coin and make multiple coins. So we could do 3 coins right here if we wanted to. Awesome. And maybe one more coin like over here. Perfect. Maybe up a little bit. There we go. Awesome. All right, let's try this out. Make sure the win works. Let's go ahead, save everything, hit play. Awesome. So we have this here. I can jump on my enemies. I can avoid these guys over here. Let's see if I can still get hurt by this new one. Yep. And looks like this guy froze. Oops. We'll see what happened there, but let's make sure the win scene works. Nope. And you know why it's doing this? It's because it's too low. So we need to make it higher up. Let's go ahead. Go to our, first off, we got to get this guy here. Doesn't like it. Let's select the enemy. Let's lower all these so I can see what I'm working with, which is going to be this guy here. Main enemy 2. You know what? I think I moved the wrong guy. Let's move him up a little bit. There we go. We had him inside the thing below it, so it wasn't going to move. And let's get this guy up. So we're going to select the win area. Let's open the win area up. And like I said before, I think it's the collision that's having the problems. So we just have to go ahead and simply move this up a little bit. That should be good there. Perfect. Let's save. Awesome. All right, let's try it again. Let's hit play. Make sure everything works. So we can still jump on this enemy there. Awesome. Jump over here. We can avoid these guys. Looks like this enemy is fixed. There we go. We can collect our coins and we can win the game. Now let's make sure it restarts by hitting space key. There we go. Awesome. Perfect. Well, everything looks like it's working good. Don't forget to save. So far, so good. Congratulations on completing the second project. In this project, we created a platform-style game. We learned a lot about how to deal with gravity and physics in our game. On top of that, we gave our game some life, adding some animations to not only the player, but even some of the enemies. Some things you could add to this game is more enemy types, or even new multiple levels.